Chris and Cash Show.
Chris and Cash podcast.
It's Friday. What is today?
February 12th.
February 12th, 2016. Cold one out there today.
Freezing out there. Stay warm, folks.
Yeah, he was outside my house for like 5 minutes. My phone was on silent, so I didn't even hear him. So
I was like, I'm going to freeze to death.
So that's my fault. We're going to get into wrap up the Super Bowl 50. Congratulations to Peyton Manning.
And the Denver Broncos.
Yep.
Gotta say that I'm actually happy for Peyton.
I am too, to some extent.
I thought it was absolutely shameless that he started plugging products
Budweiser?
Immediately. Instead of kissing his wife, he kisses Papa John. I mean, I don't know what's up with that. But
I don't know. I hope Papa John gave him a hand job out of it at least.
Oh, Peyton owns a bunch of Papa John, so he's making
and
money.
he also
owns Budweiser Distributing, so
in Tennessee.
Yeah, so he's like getting big bucks by doing that. So.
Oh man, what a whore. We're also going to get into Newton. I'm not going to waste my breath on that early. We'll get into that ad nauseum. We're going to get into a little Celtics, trade rumors, trade deadlines.
The do's and don'ts of the Celtics?
Mostly don'ts, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, agreed. But we'll get into that too.
We'll get into that too. Also, the Bruins, a absolutely horrific 9-2 loss to the LA Kings the other night. They bounced back a little bit last night, but side note, Milan Lucic, he had a goal and assist his return. Was happy for him. I mean, I'm not disagreeing.
I don't hate Luch.
No, I love him.
Huh.
I think it was time. I think he underachieved a little bit, but he always played his ass off here.
I felt like Luch was like a Rondo, where sometimes he tried harder than others.
I don't think it was a lack of effort.
I do.
You think
I don't think he always went balls to the wall. Put it that way. He didn't strike me as a Trot Nixon.
He was always ready to drop the gloves and fight, though.
Okay, doesn't mean you always tried.
Yeah, but the Boston Bruins throughout their history. That's who they are. He was like the quintessential Bruin in that regard. So, he had a good game. I'm happy for him, but the Bruins.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Bruins.
Let's
Red Sox, we're not going to do baseball.
Still too early.
We're not going to do Orioles. There are things we could talk about.
I don't want to do the Orioles.
No?
I was actually
Angelos, get rid of him.
I was actually reading something like the Orioles are going to be the surprise team in the American League, and I laughed.
And you laughed and said that surprise last place team?
What? Well,
actually, they're not that bad. Talent-wise, they're not bad.
Yeah, but look at their starting rotation. They have like Scotty LeCash and Chris O'Keefe in the rotation.
Hey, you don't know. Give me a wiffle ball.
Well, I'd have to throw left-handed. My right elbow's gone. But let's start with the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl was, in many ways, a horrific game. That's because we've been spoiled with great Super Bowls. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, Super Bowl 48, I loved. I thought it was great. Because we were jumping up and down.
Super Bowl 49, was that not one of the best games you've ever seen in your life?
It's up there. It's in the top
Even
five.
the Patriot losses, those not great games.
Oh, that first one, the 42, great game. 46, great game.
Most Super Bowls in this recent period, once the AFC won a game with the Denver Broncos, Super Bowls have been pretty good, correct?
Yeah, there's very few stinkers in there. I'll tell you what, let's go through 2000 forward. We'll do a quick recap. St. Louis and then Tennessee, great game. Baltimore killed the Giants. That was kind of a sucky game.
Okay, so you're doing the actual date of the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like it was
Baltimore Giants was a suck game, but the one thing I can say about that, as opposed to this game, that I can also give credit to Seattle with, not that I'm trying to discount Denver's defense by any means, but they're not an all-time defense. Would you agree with that?
I would, but
Baltimore was an all-time defense, correct?
Yes. That 0-2 Bucks team, I would say yes. That Seattle team in 13. I might even say that 0-3 Patriot defense. That was a hell of a defense. I know they had a bad Super Bowl.
I'd say they're probably better than this Denver. This Denver defense was very good. Don't get me wrong. You can't take away what they did. They won a championship. They were number one defense in the league. There's a lot of things positive about them. I'm just saying, if you're going to go all-time defenses, you're going to probably say
85 Bears are probably
85 Bears are probably one is what, and then I'd say Baltimore is right up there with. They have an argument of number two.
Baltimore's the best I've seen.
Right. You could even argue that number one is different.
I actually think the two best that I saw were Baltimore in 2000 and that Tampa Bay D.
Think so? None of the Pittsburgh defenses you saw?
Nah, not really. I mean, but it's tough to think that the best when Brady's shredding them every time he plays them in a playoff game.
Oh, it's because Dick LeBeau doesn't understand how to get his linebackers out of coverage.
But one thing I'll say about this Denver defense, I don't know if it belongs in the all-time category, but if you're talking when it matters, these three games, they were phenomenal.
They were. Oh, they were great all year. I mean, they were winning because of the defense and in spite of Peyton Manning, which we'll get into that a little bit.
But yeah, really quick recap. So yeah, I'm doing calendar year. So the 99 the calendar year, that was January 2000.
Correct.
So,
So
we'll call it
that's what
like
I
the
mean,
next
when the
15,
years.
16 years. So where did I leave off? The Pats-Rams all-time game.
Great game.
Tampa Bay, the Raiders, that was a blowout. That wasn't close. Carolina and the
Pats was a great game.
That was the best I saw probably prior to last year's, I would think. And I'm not just saying that just because.
There's some other ones I could say that would fit in there.
39 was it was an okay game. I mean, the Pats were kind of in control the whole second
But it was
half.
a great game.
It was a good game. I wouldn't say great. It
Very
was good. It was good. Steelers, Seattle, not really. Indy, Chicago, not really. Not horrible games, but just
Mediocre.
mediocre.
Especially for Super Bowls, we'll say.
The Pats losing the perfect season. That was a great game.
Incredible game.
Great game.
Hate to say it, even though we lost.
Oh yeah, but it was a great game. One of the best games I saw was the 06 AFC title game we lost. That was a great game too. I mean, you got to be a fan of football first, and then your team second. I think almost.
Right. You can later. It's going to sting when the team you're rooting for loses, but you got to judge the game on the quality of the actual game.
And then you can look back and reflect and say,
Right.
"Wow, that was a hell of a game."
08
Uh,
or 09, we should say. Great game.
Philly and Arizona, right? No, Pittsburgh
Pittsburgh
and
and
Arizona. You're right.
Great game.
Great game.
I mean, look at how they won. Look at the pick six Warner threw.
I was actually that was one time in my life I was rooting for the Steelers.
Oh, I was rooting for Arizona. I like Warner a lot. I'm a huge Anquan Bolden fan.
If St. Pierre wasn't the backup quarterback in Arizona, I'd probably.
For those who don't know, Scotty went to Malden Catholic. I went to St. John's Prep. I actually was a freshman when St. Pierre was a
Did
senior.
you play with him?
If you by play you mean was on the freshman team and he was a senior and on varsity,
So
sure.
so you weren't on bars? Okay.
we played on the field together in practice, and I got to watch them destroy us when they were like, "Oh, freshman defense," and I'd go in, and they'd be like,
So you didn't pick him
"Senior
off?
offense." No, I didn't pick them off. First of all, they used to just run on us and in practice, and they just had them basically destroy us. So it's fun playing against D1 talent when you're a freshman.
See, I never played against him. I heard he was a dick, though.
A little bit.
It was, yeah.
I mean, all high school quarterbacks are a little pretentious.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you'd have to say. I mean, a little bit,
my
especially when they're
quarterback,
that good.
my quarterbacks were pricks and they sucked.
And he was really good, so think about it.
All right, so Green Bay and Pittsburgh was a good game.
Yeah,
No, I skipped one.
you skipped
Uh,
2010,
New Orleans
technically.
and New Orleans and the Colts.
Yeah.
that was a good game.
That was a very good game. I mean, that pick six by Manning was huge.
That was actually.
That was a ballsy call by Peyton, the onside kick.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, to start the half, right? Start the
Yeah.
second half of that game.
Stole the possession.
What I remember most about that game, by the way, of Manning's 4 Super Bowl appearances, I thought that was by far the
Was
best.
his best game. I don't have the stats in front of me. That was his best game by
I
far.
know he threw the pick 6, but he actually played well that night.
That was the only Super Bowl you could say he legitimately played well.
What I remember most, I don't know if you remember this, and I don't know if I'm remembering it correctly. I think Indy was up 10-0 early, and Manning threw a dart to Pierre Garçon, and they were going in to make it 17-0, and he dropped it. Do you remember that?
I don't remember, but I think he did
I
drop
think it
a
was
big
Pierre
one.
Garçon.
I don't know if it was 10-0.
I think it was 10-0.
He dropped a big one. I know
They
that.
got ahead early. I remember that. The next year, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, great game. Green Bay kind of went ahead early, and then I think Pittsburgh was down 6 with the ball with 2 minutes left, so it actually was going right down to the wire. I think, didn't Mendenhall fumble?
I thought Pitt was going to come back.
I did too. I thought they were going to win it.
And I didn't want that because I didn't want Roethlisberger to have the third ring.
I was rooting for Green Bay, yeah. Which one? All right, Past Giants, part 2. That was a great game.
That was a great game. Unfortunately, again, that
Come out on the
losing
short
end.
end of the stick, but Baltimore and San Fran was a horrific game in the first half. The lights go out, go back on.
turned into an
Then
incredible
it
game.
turns into an all-time game.
I don't know what caused it, but yeah, that 4-down stand, that goal line stand to end a Super Bowl.
And I'm still okay with the no call because
I thought it was pass interference.
it was pass
They
interference.
probably could have called pass interference.
It was
on
pass interference,
any of
but-
those.
but it was also an uncatchable ball. I thought.
I understand. It's so hard to say what's uncatchable. You're not giving the guy a chance. I understand it's a Super Bowl, but if you're going to call that, and we've been over this before in arguments between ourselves, if you're going to call that in the preseason, you're going to call that in the first quarter of the first game of the season,
Call it.
you're probably even going to call that in the wild card. Okay? You're not going to call that just because it's 4th down in a Super Bowl. A penalty is a penalty is a penalty. You got to call it the same.
said that so
I
many
don't
times.
like it when you don't call things the same because you're basically saying, all right, now it's okay for you to mug this guy because it's the 4th down in the Super Bowl.
It probably was a hold, but as I said before, and I said at the time, I just didn't think the ball was catchable.
But as a neutral observer of the game, I can sit there and say, that's
Right,
my team.
I was sort of rooting for San Fran, but I didn't really.
I didn't really care. I mean, I don't like Baltimore.
I was
so
rooting for the Niners. I think.
I would say if that was my team and it wasn't called, I'd be pissed. If that was my team and it wasn't called,
I'd be
like on the defense, I'd be like, wow, we got away with one.
Right.
So by that, I know they should have probably called it. Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at it, but from what I remember, and I saw the replay recently, I still don't think he would have caught it.
You can't know if you guy didn't have a chance.
Yeah, but unless he
Could have went to the corner of the end zone and caught it. We
yeah,
don't
but
know.
unless he jumps like Spud Webb, like
I didn't
8 feet
think
in the air.
not Antonio Brown. I think Santonio Holmes was going to catch the Roethlisberger pass. Did you?
He caught it.
And it was
Great
incredible.
catch.
Right. So you got to give the guy an opportunity. That play doesn't happen if the guy holds him. Okay? That's my point.
Understood.
If you're going to let things go, you're going to let things go. You got to call him if you're going to call him.
And wrap it up really quickly. 48. Great game to like cheer against Denver.
Horrible when you just consider
To actually like
watch.
No.
Yeah. After
no,
what?
No climax.
10 minutes in, you were like, oh, game's over.
Yeah.
Was it 26-0 at that point already? It was 26-0 pretty quick.
29-0 at the half. No, it was 22-0 at the half after the pick six. Then they returned the kickoff. Was it Sidney Rice who returned the kickoff 100 yards?
I don't know. That entire game was just all Seattle.
It was a blur.
Yeah.
Past Seattle, great game. Many say it's even now it's best game of all time. I think it's certainly in the conversation. Now we get to this game, and all I heard in the aftermath, I don't know if you feel this way, was that it was like a boring game to watch, and it was just a poorly played game. While I will agree that it was a sloppy game, like a poorly played game, I wouldn't say it was horrible. The reason that people think it's horrible is that they're so desensitized with the offense, that when they see two defenses, they think it's a horrible game.
But this is the problem I have with this. I actually love defensive football.
Me too.
I hate the league right now. The way it is all offense all the time.
I agree with you.
Offensively offensive. We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
I love defense. I want to see defensive struggles. I think that this was a lot of the defenses, and it's hard to tell when the great defense stops and the horrible offense starts.
Right.
It was horrible offense. I didn't feel like the offenses were playing well and the defense was just destroying them. I felt like these offenses can't do anything. I don't know if those offenses would have been scoring on horrible defenses. Cam Newton looked flustered, lost, unready. We've talked about...
Did he ever?
He looked like he was going to heave in the first half. He was breathing heavy. He looked like Donovan McNabb in the first quarter.
At least McNabb, he threw 3 picks. At least McNabb threw 3 touchdowns. At least he was somewhat productive in that game.
Yeah,
Newton did
and
nothing.
McNabb didn't. That didn't happen until the fourth quarter at the end. Cam Newton looked like that in the first quarter, starting the game. That Von Miller thing, I don't know how you don't see a guy coming off your that wasn't his blind side. That was his vision edge. Like he should have saw him in the periphery. He wasn't ready. Now I'm not saying that Von Miller wasn't great. I'm not saying Coney wasn't great because he was too. But how much of that was Cam Newton and Peyton Manning just absolutely sucking?
Oh, they were
in
horrible.
terms of quarterback play for a Super Bowl, even including the first
the worst.
Super Bowl, second Super Bowl, all the way through from the beginning, that is the biggest quarterback suckage based on the era and the way they allow you to play we have ever seen.
Pretty bad.
Now, I know there might have been some holds here and there, and they kind of let them play more, which goes back to is it a penalty or not?
Well, that Talib face mask was vicious.
That was an ejection-worthy face mask. He could have been ejected.
Let me say,
do you disagree?
No, in 2000.
I loved it that it was only for a yard or whatever it was.
Like in 2001, that's probably still a penalty.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
that was a penalty.
That could have been a penalty
Whenever.
in the 70s.
70s, yeah. And the thing is, he didn't just pull him. He looked like he was trying to rip his head off.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that it's just a penalty. No, he was out of control at that point. If people had problems with Odell Beckham, they should have had problems with that.
Oh, if this asshole Goodell is consistent at all, Talib will be suspended. And I actually like Talib, honestly.
I really like
But
Talib too. He's an idiot. He makes boneheaded plays. That was his second personal foul in a row.
He went too far.
If that's your second personal foul and you looked at that egregious, that was really egregious.
Yeah, hit the showers.
I would have been like, you're out of the game, dude. You can't control yourself. The refs didn't do that, and then Talib calmed down because he probably knew if that happens again, he's out. You know what I mean? I actually thought when they called him for, I don't know, it was extra point, I think, or whatever, and they called him offsides or something.
No, he was offside and they didn't call it on the miss.
No, they called it. Well, that's correct too. They called him for being offsides
Which
on
one
the
are you-
extra point. You're talking about the field goal.
I'm talking about the field goal.
On the extra point, they called him offsides. I thought they were actually going to call a personal foul and boot him from the game.
I gotcha.
But it wasn't a personal foul. It's just offsides. You're talking about the missed field goal. That is correct. They were offsides.
That was offsides, 5 yards. He should have had a chance.
Re-kick the field goal. They also consistently didn't call Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware jumping offsides horrifically. There was also a lot of false starts they didn't call either. Now, the false starts were probably because of the constant offsides. Because when we paused it or watched the replays, or watched it in slow-mo at all, they were consistently offsides.
It was a weird thing, Chris, because if you look at Carolina's offensive line, the center and the 2 guards weren't jumping off. They were in their stance. And
The 2 tackles.
It was the 2 tackles.
But the reason they were jumping off is because...
They were in concert with each other.
Right.
Like jumping off. They both jumped off.
But the reason for that is, if you watched a lot of the replays on slow-mo, Ware and Von Miller were constantly offsides.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
like they were hopping snap counts.
They were
they were early. They were in the one of them. DeMarcus Ware, I think, had a sack or he did something, and he was literally so offsides it wasn't even funny. They didn't call it. I was like, how can you not call that? Like he was behind the line of scrimmage when they snapped the ball.
Well, that's the other thing too. Getting back to Newton, like a seasoned veteran, like if that's Manning on the other side under center,
starts the snap count change.
Right,
to get counts, them to draw have them off. Jump.
Yep.
But the problem was they were jumping anyways and they weren't calling it. And that's an issue for me. But I'm not going to say the refs cost the game because they didn't.
It wasn't great, but
it wasn't a greatly officiated game.
It wasn't, but I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, like there are some Carolina honks saying like, oh, the officials screwed us. No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
That game was lost, but by your own quarterback. Which we're going to get into that. Cam Newton was horrific. Mm-hmm. I want to preface this.
That's way too kind. Horrific's way too kind.
He was terribly, disgustingly, horrifically gross.
That'll do, Pig. Continue.
Okay. I was a huge Cam Newton fan. Now I'm going to say I'm no longer a huge Cam Newton fan, not because of how bad he sucked. I want that out there. I am no longer a huge Cam Newton fan, or probably a fan at all, because he's a dog. He gave up in that Super Bowl. Twice, he fumbled and did nothing to try to recover it. The most glaring one was the second one, where he literally probably could have jumped on the ground and recovered it himself. He backed up because he was afraid of getting injured, which he said as much later in the week.
He admitted it.
To me, that is horrendous. That is the fourth quarter of a one-possession Super Bowl.
You're down 6.
Tom Brady would rip off his own arm to recover that. He would literally rip off his left arm with his right arm and then use it as a stick to pull the ball back. I have no idea how a quarterback... The only other quarterback in the league who I could think maybe doesn't go after that, actually maybe a few, but maybe doesn't go after that, is Jay Cutler. And that's because Jay Cutler's just disinterested in life, it looks like. Every other quarterback is... Peyton Manning's possibly dead on the ground getting that football.
We make fun of him a lot, but there's no doubt about it.
Right. Every quarterback. I mean, Eli with his I don't know what's going on face is on the ground getting that football. Joe Flacco. Everybody. Every quarterback I can think of.
Let's put it this way. Any quarterback who cares is on the ground.
And if that's the preseason, all right. That's the regular season.
Yeah.
Maybe you got a playoff spot wrapped up. Maybe you let it go. This isn't even a playoff game.
Super Bowl.
This is the Super Bowl. You weren't up 30 points. The other team wasn't up 30 points. This is a one-possession game Super Bowl.
Chris, I told you at the time, and I'm going to say it here, it was unacceptable and embarrassing are the two things that I would say. And I'm mad at myself. And the reason I'm mad at myself is because I've been telling you since his rookie year.
They are who we thought they were.
No. Well, to a degree. You knew I wasn't a believer in Carolina all year.
Agreed. Neither was I.
And it wasn't because of their defense. It wasn't because of Ron Rivera's coaching.
Agreed.
It was because... Why?
We didn't trust Cam Newton
I did not trust Cam Newton in a big game.
Which is why both of us thought they were going to lose ahead of this. I'll say it again, and we said it before. They are and were the most overrated 15-1 team. Or the worst 15-1 team. They were probably the worst if they had gone 14-2 team we've ever seen, because they played the easiest schedule.
Well, the 2010 Pats, that was a bad team.
I think the 2010 Pats are better than this team. I honestly
Just because of Brady?
Brady, Gronk, Hernandez.
But they were
the little midgets
they
had.
Were rookies, so.
They had Welker and Deion Branch and Danny Woodhead being midgets.
Deion was just about done.
They had rookies and midgets. That team went on a roll, too, actually, before they lost in the playoffs.
Hey, they lost to the better team. And I actually said at the time, like, and people were making fun of me, like, I don't want to play the Jets up here, even though we beat them 45-3. I still thought they were going to win.
It's hard to say that you lost the better team when you absolutely destroyed them a month and a half before.
I just
And I don't mean destroyed. I mean like one of the worst beatdowns in NFL history.
that was a hell of a day. If they had a competent quarterback, like if they had like a 35-year-old Vinny Testaverde in 2010, they probably win the Super Bowl.
Just like Testaverde because he's Italian.
Yeah, Vinny was a good QB. All right. If they have Chad Pennington, they probably at least win the AFC. They probably go into Pittsburgh and beat them. Mark Sanchez is horrendous. Horrendous.
Algie Crumpler catches that first touchdown. Maybe it's a different game.
There was another fluke play that game. Like
Well, and that's another thing with this Super Bowl.
Oh, wasn't it like a fake punt with like Chung or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Who knows what actually occurred there because we got different stories at different times.
But the reason I was upset about I'm sorry, I just want to finish this one point. The reason I was so upset with myself is I should have just stuck to my guns. Because I never believed in this guy. I always thought he was overrated. I never thought he took it seriously enough. But
I told you.
Those 2 playoff games made me reconsider.
I told you, though, I didn't think Cam was ready. Well, I should say I questioned whether he was ready based on the week he had.
You did.
And the thing is, I still think Carolina's a better team. I think the better team lost the game. The better team on the day won because of Denver's defense.
Well, that's how it works.
Right, but if you're not going to sit here and tell me that a bunch of fluky crap didn't happen.
That stuff happens all the time, though.
Okay, so 2 Cam Newton fumbles.
The 2001 Rams were a better team than the 2001 Patriots.
But
it's all about that one game.
2001 Rams, how bad did the Rams play that game?
Well, they had 3 turnovers. Do
you think they literally played as bad as Carolina did?
No, and the reason that I say that is because St. Louis came back late and kind of got on track, even though it was late in the fourth.
Statistically, Carolina dominated this game. When you just look at raw like yardage and first downs, I mean, I think the numbers are the Broncos had 11 first downs and like 190 something yards for the game.
There was something like both teams together with like something like 3 of 25 on third.
Right, and the Broncos converted 1 third down for a first, 1 in the game,
and Carolina had 2.
So both of them sucked.
One of them was right before the half.
My point was Denver was so horrific. Other than the first drive of the game, Denver was horrific. Okay, Denver had that good first drive of the game offensively. Mm-hmm. Other than that, you have 2 Cam Newton turnovers, which fumbles become touchdowns. Mm-hmm. One of them a defensive score. Okay, mm-hmm. You have a missed field goal by Carolina. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have another pick by Cam Newton in the red zone. I believe it was red zone, or was just about to be the red zone. Carolina would have had probably another field goal easy.
Yep.
Okay, and you had that weird non-fair catch run back, which also gave Denver another field goal. Mm-hmm. So this game was full of big play flukes. Really fluky game.
But you know what? That's been Denver's season.
Agreed. Against any team.
I think Joe DiMaggio. I don't know if this quote's attributed to him. It's been attributed to him. You'd rather be lucky than good, but it's even better to be both. And Denver was good, make no mistake. Maybe not their offense, but the way their defense played.
Denver's defense was phenomenal, but Denver's offense was so anemic and horrible. I didn't think a team could win in this league currently the way that they played.
Go back and listen to one of our older podcasts in like October, and we were talking about Denver, and we both said the same thing. They're D's legit, but they can't win a championship with Peyton playing like this.
I don't know how a team. This is Peyton's numbers for the game, folks.
Do the comparison between the two.
Cam Newton was, you could say worse, but you could say better. First of all, he had 66 rushes for 45 yards. He also was 18 for 41 passing. Horrible. But 265 yards.
In his defense, and not that I'm defending him, his receivers dropped a lot of balls, but still 18.
Also, Ted Ginn on one of those plays could have run up and scored a touchdown, and he decelerated and went out of bounds. I have no idea what was going on. If he turns it upfield immediately and just uses his jets, he gets by the safety and scores a touchdown. It was a big game, anyways.
I think after that, like
inexcusable.
They panned to like the Denver defenders, and they were like incredulous, like what the hell's he doing?
I don't know.
They knew they caught him.
So Peyton Manning was 18 for 41, 265 yards, not a bad total yardage, 1 interception. Okay,
no touchdowns.
QBR was 16. Mm-hmm. Okay.
His QBR is kind of a crap stat, though.
Right, but it is and it isn't, but I don't really like it, but we're going to use it anyways. His rating was 55.4. Horrible, okay?
Especially in today's league.
Horrible. But he did a 45 yards rushing, too, which is big for a quarterback. Peyton Manning, okay? 13 for 23, Some of those were the shortest passes I've ever seen, by the way. 141 yards.
Mm-hmm.
141 yards. I mean, they would have given Peyton Manning the MVP if they could, but they couldn't even give it to him.
They couldn't even justify it. It would
Right.
have been highway robbery.
No touchdowns, obviously. One interception.
Which was a horrible interception. That's one of the
He
worst.
should have had a few more. If Josh Norman could catch, I mean, some of them were hard, but Josh Norman could have had at least one more.
That one pick he threw.
Probably two.
That one pick he threw is one of the worst interceptions I've ever
I think
seen.
he just thought Coney Ely wasn't going to be able to catch it because he's a defensive lineman.
I don't
Because he
know.
threw it right at his arm. And he just put his arm up and was like, thank you. Quarterback rating of 56.6, so a point better than Cam Newton. His QBR was a 9.9.
Which, by the way, since that stat was invented, is the worst in the history of the Super Bowl.
And he won.
And he won.
Peyton Manning has won 2 Super Bowls playing horrific. One of them with the lowest QBR and I think QB rating of game winning Super Bowl ever.
He wasn't horrific
He was
against the
horrific.
Bears. Against the Bears.
He was horrific that postseason, though. That was the worst quarterback-rated postseason run of any Super Bowl winning quarterback.
The Super Bowl was meh.
Right, but he was also poor in the games before that.
He had one good second half against New England.
That's it. The rest of the time in the Super Bowl, in the playoffs that year, he was horrible.
He was abysmal against Kansas City and Baltimore in the playoffs.
Right, so he was technically horrible. He really was. He was horrible.
Well, he threw 3 touchdowns, 7 interceptions the whole postseason.
Right.
That's abysmal.
And he won a Super Bowl because Bob Sanders was playing out of his mind. Okay?
Well, and the Patriots were all injured, and I don't know. Troy Brown's the reason Peyton Manning has a ring. Because if he doesn't create that fumble,
Rashae Caldwell is the reason Peyton Manning has a ring.
no, because they would have gone out to San Diego and got waxed.
Well, agreed, but
Waxed.
the Patriots should have beat them anyways.
Probably.
Rashae Caldwell could catch a 4-yard pass. It's a first down. End of the game.
Bug eyes.
Von Miller was phenomenal.
Yeah, great game.
I wanna give it to him.
Great postseason.
There's a lot of talk about him being the best defensive player in the league. Horrible. First of all, as much as I think he's great and he played well.
Top 5? Would you put him in top 5?
Yeah. Probably, probably right around 5. If I had to rate him.
If we're talking,
Again, I already said I think Kuechly's better than him.
If we're talking best, I mean, I think Watt has to be the consensus.
Oh,
number one.
Watt is. That's what my point was going to be. Watt is by far better than him. And now people think Von Miller should be the highest paid defensive player in the league. He probably will be just because numbers accelerate. They increase all the time.
If I could either have him or Cam Chancellor, honestly, I might take Chancellor over him. I mean, you can always find a pass rusher,
Okay.
and I know he's a linebacker.
Yes and no. Can you ever find a pass rusher that's that good? Easily.
Well, it's the second pick in the draft.
Right.
I'm saying you could draft guys in the later rounds who can do what he does as far as rushing the quarterback.
He's relatively one-dimensional. I'll give you that. His run defense has gotten better over time, but he's not the greatest run defender. He's still one of the best pass rushers the league has. I mean, he's probably a top 5 defender.
If JPP didn't blow off his hand, who would you rather have?
Von Miller right now.
Take Miller in?
Yeah, JPP 3 years ago, sure. The guy was the best defender probably in the league, or up there. But JJ Watt is just, he's on another level.
He does nothing against
JJ
us.
Watt's like, well, yeah, it's Tom Brady. Tom Brady's like, avoid that man. I mean, Tom Brady practices with him having tennis rackets in his face, so he knows how big JJ Watt's hands are. I mean, come on. Tom Brady's probably practicing that right now as we speak. He's like lifting and pissing on a Peyton Manning poster and getting really upset that he didn't win the Super Bowl this year. But I digress.
Really quick, he retires?
Peyton?
I don't think he comes
Peyton
back.
has to retire.
I don't think he comes
I'll give
back.
you a huge reason why.
He doesn't want the HGH thing to blow up while he's
That's
playing.
one. Number 2, the reason I know, players are not allowed to endorse beer at any NFL events. Active players, okay? So he technically should have got in trouble for that. But he's going to be retiring anyways. And everyone knows that. The second he endorsed Budweiser, I was like, he's retiring. Because he can't be like, well, I'm going to go drink me a bunch of Bud. Because you're not supposed to say that.
I'm going to go eat some Papa John's pizza.
Yeah, like he literally was like plugging like everything. And then I'm going to go drive my Buick. And then I'm going to get some nationwide insurance. And it's like, no.
For the record, I've had a couple of Buicks, and I love Buicks. You remember my Buick?
You're a Buick guy.
Yeah, I had an 09 Lucerne, great car. I found out Peyton Manning endorsed Buick. I had to get a new car. I drive a Cadillac now.
Got more power, more acceleration.
Cadillac got more acceleration, got more power. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, let's I guess quit with the. We'll cam it up here and we'll quit the Super Bowl talk. I got nothing more to say.
By the way, go to our site, gamesofinches.com. See who. I didn't have a chance to post it yet because I got out of work a little late, but see who the bum of the week is.
Gamesofinches.com.
I'll give you a hint. We were just talking about him for 10 minutes.
Real quick before we go into the other sports. Think the Patriots should go after Josh Gordon at all?
High or not high? High
I
or
don't
so?
care either way.
Depends on the price. I think he's a really good player. That would give them ridiculous depth. If you had
Give them ridiculous talent.
well, if you have Butler on one side, and can't even think. Gordon on the other side, then Logan Ryan should basically nickel.
No. Gordon's a wide receiver.
Who am I thinking? Oh, I'm thinking Hayden. Never mind.
Josh Gordon.
I'm thinking of Hayden.
Yeah.
Same. Depend on the price.
I think that would be a good thing.
That's
Also,
a total brain fart on my end.
that's okay.
Is
Odell Beckham.
Is Hayden still? Is Hayden still in the Browns?
Yeah. Unfortunately, so is Joe Thomas. Like you got to get some of those guys. You got to like free them. They should be like free Joe Thomas, free Joe Hayden campaigns. Like they should just be like free him. Like, but Josh Gordon. I mean, I think if you put him on the Patriots and he stays clean,
Can he learn the playbook?
I don't care if he can learn the playbook.
You better.
Run. Run, Forrest, run.
We've seen this movie before.
Go vertical, Forrest. Peyton Manning was great when he had Randy Moss. I see no difference he'd have with Josh Gordon. Also, Odell Beckham Jr.'s cousin is going to be in the Combine.
Okay.
He's never even played college football. Teron Beckham. The dude looks like he's ridiculous. He's a 44-inch vertical.
Is he a receiver too?
He's a running back. 5'11", 230 pounds. The dude is jacked out of his mind. He looks like, oh God. Who's that guy? He played for the Jets and he played for Washington. He was a safety. He got suspended. Looked like Hulk. Landry. LaRon Landry.
LaRon Landry.
Okay? That's what this guy looks like. He's definitely on something. I can tell you right now how big he is. But he bench presses 225 40 times. He's a 44-inch vertical. He wants to try out and play in the league. Patriots should go get him. Draft him in like a 5th round or something. 6th round. Never played college football. But
Do they have any draft picks left?
Goodell's probably going to take him as we speak. But let's get into... I guess we'll get into the Bruins.
Yeah. That was a bad loss to LA.
See, this is the thing. I don't have expectations for the Bruins. We talked about this in the beginning of the season. The expectations for me are basically non-existent. Are they going to be mediocre? Because, yes, they are.
Well,
so what should we do?
They sort of blew it up to some extent. One thing I think that Sweeney should explore doing in the coming weeks, because I think the deadline's at the end of February. He has no trade clause because Peter Chiarelli just gave everybody a no trade clause. I'm pretty sure that the trainer has a no trade clause.
But again, do we blame Peter Chiarelli for winning a cup and going to another one?
Well, yeah,
Because
terrible.
other than Chicago, who had a better 5-year period? I guess the Kings. Yeah.
But what I would say about Sweeney, get in touch with Chara's agent, because Chara has a no trade. See if there are any teams needing a defenseman that he would waive his no trade clause to go to.
Do you think he would, though?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, the thing is,
I
I guess every time you actually... It's odd. Players are always supposedly not going to want to be traded. Then the second you actually go to them and ask them, they've been so disrespected by you asking them, they say yes and go anyways. It's like, well, you don't want me, then I'm leaving. Like, KG never wanted to leave Minnie. The second Minnie asked him, the actual owner asked him, he was like, well, now I'm leaving. And went to Boston.
Well, getting Ray Allen was a big part of that.
Yeah, but I mean, once a GM or an owner or head of a franchise, the front office actually goes to a player and says, hey, is it cool if we trade you? That player already feels like they're not wanted and so disrespected. You know, you're not paying me, you disrespect me type thing. Same thing. Once you ask them to be traded, they're like, good. Fuck you then. I'm leaving. I'll get traded.
In this case, I don't think Chara should take it like that, and I don't think that's what it is. I think what it is, Chara's wasted on a rebuilding team. He's 38 years old. No, I think he's going to be 39 next month.
I believe he's the same age as Tom Brady, so that would make sense. I think a little older.
I think he's going to be 39. So it makes sense for him to go to a contender rather. What is Zdeno Chara going to do in a rebuilding phase? What?
I don't know what he's going to do anyway, to be honest with you.
I mean, he's clearly lost a step, but if you take...
Lost a step. I mean, I'd say it's almost 2 or 3. I know he's still pretty good and he's enormous.
Well, I mean, he struggled because of his size and now his age is getting up there. He struggles with like the fast skaters. That's why he always seems to struggle against Montreal because they get up and down the ice so quick. Gary Price might be out the rest of the year, by the way, for those Habs fans. Any of them are listening to the show. But I think it's something that Sweeney needs to look into.
Still 38. Be 39 in March.
Okay.
I knew he was the same age as Brady, just younger, older.
I think it's something, and I don't think it's that they don't want Chara here. I just think that the writing is on the wall. They're rebuilding. They need to get younger. They want to get younger.
Are they rebuilding though?
I
know that we've talked about how they know that they're not a championship team, and same with the Celtics.
They traded Lucic.
But are they rebuilding?
They traded Lucic for draft picks, and they drafted kids that are playing in Providence now. So yeah, I would say that they're rebuilding.
They still seem like they're too much in the middle.
Well,
they can't rebuild being in the middle.
They're out of the playoffs right now.
I mean, like they were playing for this year. They've been out.
See, I never believed that.
Standings are so close. They've been in the playoffs.
They've been out. They've been in. They've been out. They've been in.
They look like a good team in the playoffs.
They were actually second in the division for a while.
That's what I mean.
But so. I think to a man, Don Sweeney and Cam Neely would view this as a bridge year. I don't think they had any realistic expectations to compete. I think that's why they made the deals that they did and drafted the kids that they did. And that's why I don't think it makes sense for Chara to be here anymore. I really don't. I think he could help a contender. I don't think being here is in his best interest. So if they came to him with trade options, I'd listen if I were him.
I'm not saying I wouldn't. I definitely think.
And that goes for Seidenberg too. Seidenberg's what, 35? Been injured a lot.
I think in hockey is you can play forever.
You can play forever, but are you going to be effective forever?
No, but I mean, how many guys have you seen play forever?
Like, look at Raymond Bourque. Like, his last couple of years with Colorado, I know he won a cup, and it was great. We were all super happy. One of the great guys who ever played here. But, I mean, he wasn't the Ray Bourque from, like, 1990.
Of course not.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You can play in hockey forever, and, like, typically, like, hockey seems to have a little bit more longevity than, say, basketball.
Than any sport, really.
Football, right.
You get a lot of hockey players playing until they're 40.
Which is phenomenal because hockey...
I mean, Recchi.
Hockey, with football becoming pussified, it really is the most physical game of the 4 major sports now. Even though they try to cut out, some of the fighting and extracurricular stuff. But hockey's the most hardcore sport right now. Wouldn't you agree? I think so.
Definitely.
Football might be Football's barely a contact sport anymore. Is what Goodell's done to it. But I think if Don Sweeney's serious about this rebuild, he's got to look at Chara, see if there's anywhere to move him, try to get back. Make no mistake, you don't give him away for nothing just to get rid of him. You got to get something in return. If a deal's not there, then don't make the deal.
This reminds me of Jaromir Jagr. And
why Jaromir Jagr?
Because he played forever. And the 2013 team, when they were on their run, and they asked all of them, like, in their little, like, things for the Stanley Cup, like, who's your favorite player? And Krejci was like, Jaromir Jagr. And then when they asked Jaromir Jagr, who's your favorite player? And he's like, Jaromir Jagr. That cracks me up. I'll never forget that. I know it's a wicked tangent. But
you know what the funny thing is? Like, Jagr didn't score a goal that whole postseason, but he hit the post like 9 times.
Yeah, he was definitely snake bit, but he also Jagr had the puck more than any player in like the history of anything.
He
would just hold the puck and just like
he was like Allen Iverson.
No one could take it from him.
He was Allen Iverson on skates. He definitely was.
No one could take the puck from him. He just skate around, have 4 guys on him, wouldn't pass, just get it in a little corner.
But yeah, you were gonna make a point about the Bees.
Oh, I think they should just blow it up more. It's not really blown up enough. It's not. They're too in the middle. I don't like the bridge year crap. You rebuild.
That's what I think they are.
I know, but they say bridge year is like, well, we're in a rebuild, but we're not going to completely blow it up because we don't want you guys to lose faith and we want you to come to the games. So thanks.
Yeah, but you know what? If Spooner and Pasternak continue to get better and they get more experience and then they bring up the kids from Providence and they produce, it's different in hockey. In hockey, all you need is a hot goaltender and the rest of your team could suck and you could make a run in the playoffs.
So we think Tuukka's that guy? I mean, we gave him credit after that Stanley Cup run. I know they didn't win.
He had a great run, except for actually he kind of sucked against Toronto, and then against the Rangers and Pittsburgh he was phenomenal. And
He's pretty good in the finals.
He had that one bad game in the fourth game. They should have gone up 3-1. I still say that
they would have won it. Yeah.
I don't think they lose 3 in a row. I think they would have won that thing.
I think the only untouchable player, and you and I agree on this, is Bergeron. And by untouchable, we mean you're not going to move him because there's no one going to give you a realistic trade for him.
Yeah, like you were saying like a couple of weeks ago, like if you can get like Jonathan Taves, then sure.
Yeah, obviously you'll remove like they're going to give me 17 first-round picks and Jonathan Taves. We'll move him. You know what I mean?
But anything realistic, like I don't think. I mean, he's 30 years old. He's in his prime. Actually, I think he might be 31 now. But he's smack dab in the middle of his prime. He's the best two-way player on the team. I hope I'm not jinxing you here, Patrice. Yeah, the guy's a horse. He always plays.
Dude, guy with a collapsed lung. Yeah.
Played with a collapsed lung. I don't know if he would have played.
He would have played with no lungs. They would have been like, what is he doing? I don't know. How's he breathing? I don't know.
He's got like a fish tank around his head, and like he grew gills so he could like breathe and play.
I think Marchand's probably the guy I think is the second most.
See, I think that they would trade him for the right deal.
Of course, again, but
because I honestly think that Neely despises his antics.
I think everybody does, but you know what? I think he kind of gets treated like a Lance Stevenson does at this point, where his reputation precedes him, but it's kind of overblown. Like, I don't think Marchand should have been suspended for as many games as he was. Most players wouldn't have been. But he's looked as a repeat offender, even though I don't think he's that dirty.
Nah, he's pretty dirty. Come on. I mean, you're going to have guys like that, though. I mean, old Samuelson, like back in the day, was one of those guys.
Anyways, they should really just continue to sell. Sell and build for the future. Even if this team makes the playoffs, they're not going to go past the second round. They're not.
I'm not sure they'll win a playoff series.
Right. I don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs.
Right.
But so that ties me into the Celtics. I have similar feelings with the Celtics. They're not a championship team.
We're like a broken record with these two
well,
teams.
I know that.
But
the sports are different.
I do have a lot to get into about the Celtics, but I'll let you make your point.
Right, the sports are different, but the Celtics are not a championship team either. They're maybe a second round out. I heard someone the other day, I think it was Michael Hawley actually, saying that he expects them to make the Eastern Conference Finals, and if they don't, he's going to be upset or let down because of how they've been playing. Well, I don't know. You know, they won a couple nice games. They beat Cleveland. They had that really good game against Golden State early in the year, and suddenly they beat the Clippers and
without Blake Griffin.
They're the greatest thing.
But actually, they've been playing better without Griffin.
They're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, they're not.
Actually, I don't know if did you watch that game? I watched that game, the Clipper game.
Yeah, part of it.
I watched the whole thing. That was like an early '90s game. It had like an early '90s feel to it, where like they actually moved the ball and like took open shots, and you know.
It goes back to Brad Stevens' small ball, the way he plays. Like he's very good at coaching up.
Brad Stevens' ball is Nelly ball. It's Don Nelson basketball.
Right. He's very good at coaching up the youngins. That we don't have a superstar to play as a team. And the sum of the parts is great. The sum of the whole is greater than the parts. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you win in the NBA. It's not.
No.
I mean, maybe one team in the modern era at all.
2004 Detroit Pistons.
Right.
That's the only one
it's the only team you could say. And even they had 5 players that were probably better than any player on this current Celtics team is constituted.
No, that was a talented team. They
didn't have a superstar.
They had a bunch of number 2s and number 3s.
Right.
But they were really good number 2s.
Right. They had like 2.5s all around.
So here were the 04 Detroit Pistons, they destroyed LA in the finals. They were holding LA to like.
That was shocking, by the way. That was not shocking.
That to me is, since I've been watching basketball, which is like 90, 91, around there. That's the one NBA Finals I look at the result and I say, look at it on paper and like the result does not make sense.
Is that the one time where you're like, the league isn't fixed?
Yeah, to be honest with you.
By the way, look, rumbles about the NFL being fixed. Do you believe that at all?
To a degree.
People even say, like, the 0-1 Patriots, like, oh, 9/11 happened, suddenly we're all Patriots, we win the Super Bowl.
It's funny, my grandfather went to his grave convinced that game was fixed.
Right. Well, a lot of people have been mentioning how the NFL is more WWE than ever, and they're starting to think a lot of it's fixed.
I don't think it was on the Tagliabue.
You wonder if Cam Newton even bet on the game, the way he played.
Oh, Pete Rose?
I mean, who gives up a fumble like that?
I don't know. Get back to the
Celtics.
Yeah, get back to the Celtics. I actually want to talk about that 04 Pistons team. They required Rasheed back when he gave a shit mid-season. So
if he's in shape, the Celtics win that title.
He actually played really good in that 7th game.
But if he's in shape, they win the title.
Well, they win the title if their starting center doesn't rip his knee up.
He looked like Cam Newton, breathing heavy.
All right, so this was the 04 Pistons starting lineup.
By the way, you don't believe me on that? Go back and watch the replays.
Go watch it. Horrific.
Cam Newton is breathing heavy constantly in that game. And I don't mean like, oh, I've been playing a football game heavy. I mean like I'm going to die and throw up heavy.
Like Chris O'Keefe going up the stairs heavy.
Yes, like really bad. Like, I don't even want to say, Papagenos.
Oh, I can't mention it. Oh, I wish I could.
But we're going to continue.
All right, so that 04 Pistons team. You had Rasheed, all-star when he felt like playing. You had Ben Wallace, who at the time was Defensive Player of the Year. Actually, was Garnett? No, Garnett wasn't that year. Ben Wallace was Defensive Player of the Year.
Garnett got a chance to be. The reason Garnett wasn't...
I'm talking about just 04.
Yeah, Garnett wasn't... Right.
He was the MVP.
Garnett was second in Defensive Player of the Year, I believe. Second or third. But the reason was Ben Wallace was just out of his mind defensively.
He was great defensive center, great
KG
rebounder.
should have won more Defensive Players of the Year. However, he ended up being against Ben Wallace a lot. And Ben Wallace was just otherworldly. Probably a top 5 defender of all time.
Ben Wallace, another guy who should have been a Celtic, could have been a Celtic, but Patino said he couldn't play. Thanks, Rick. Tayshaun Prince, who was in I think a second year in the league.
Tayshaun Prince was probably the skinniest dude I've ever seen in the league.
He could ball, though.
Oh.
Back then.
His arms, McHale-like.
Yeah.
McHale-like. He looked like an alien, too. He looked like if Sam Cassell and Kevin McHale had a kid. Tayshaun Prince, ladies and gentlemen.
But I actually thought one of the most underrated backcourts of that era was Chauncey at the 1, who his whole MO, his whole career was he's not a 1, he's a shooting guard, and he became a pretty good point guard. Then you had Richard Hamilton at the 2. And they actually...
And Rip Hamilton was a great knockdown shooter.
He could fill it up, man. Especially when he was at UConn. He didn't miss, and it carried into the pros. That's a good starting 5. I'm not saying that was a talented team.
That's a great starting 5.
That was a talented team.
They probably should have won more than one title.
Well, they should have won the next year. And I think in 08...
They ended up taking Rasheed's persona over. They dogged it every year in the regular season. And come postseason, they showed up to play.
That 08 Piston team, the winner of that East Final between the Celtics and Pistons, that was your champion. Because if Detroit had beaten us, they were going to beat LA. So that was the finals. But them beating LA still doesn't make sense. And the Spurs have had a lot of good defensive teams over the year with Duncan. And I always said that the 2 best defensive teams really in the last 15 years, I'd say, were that 04 Pistons team. Because they just shut people down. And that 08 Celtic team. I might give the 08 Celtic team a little bit of an edge. Because you got to remember, back in 04, there was still hand checking. You could be a little bit more physical.
But I got a question for you. Does that 07-08 Celtic team stop Shaq?
Well, he wasn't on that team. Oh, I know what you're saying.
If it moved the teams in time, kind of thing.
I think Perkins could hold him down a little bit. I'm not saying he shuts him down. Shaq's still going to get his points. He's still going to get his 30 and 15.
Because remember, technically you have Shaq, Kobe, the player previously known as Gary Payton,
Malone,
and the ghost of Karl Malone. Granted, they still weren't horrible, actually. They were decent players.
The 08 team still would have beaten them. They could have beaten them in 5. I still think Shaquille gets his, like I said, his 30 points, his 15 to 20 rebounds, but I think Perk makes him work for it. Perk was actually really good.
I don't think he does anything near the job that Ben Wallace did, though.
I'm not saying that. but I still.
And what has Ben Wallace really 6'8", 6'9"?
He was like 6'9". Yeah.
He was able to cover Shaq like that.
Perkins is a really good post defender.
I
think he would have. He had a little bit more length than Wallace, maybe a little bit more physical. And they're both physical guys.
Oh, Wallace is more physical. Dude, Wallace might be the strongest dude since Wilt.
Ben Wallace.
Wilt could lift a house 10 times while having sex. The stories on Wilt and his strength that absolutely absurdly lies.
Ben Wallace was...
Not that Wilt wasn't strong, by the way, but...
Ben Wallace was a junkyard dog, but, Perkins was no slouch either. I think he would have... Like I said, Shaquille still would have got his points, but I think Perk would have made him work for it. Before we get into the Celtic rumors, I want to talk about what Golden State's doing at 48-4. Best record through 52 games in the league's history, on pace to shatter the 72-win Bull team in '96. Now, we don't know what their win total is going to end up being.
73.
They could win as many as 75, I think. I mean, I could see them dropping 3 more games. Now, they haven't won the championship, the defending champions. They still have to go on and do that before they're in the conversation of greatest teams ever. This team wins 75 games and they roll through the playoffs. They're unquestionably going to be a top 10 team.
I doubt they're going to roll through the playoffs specifically because of the Spurs.
I think they're going to roll through the first 2 rounds. I think they're going to roll through whoever comes out of the East. I don't think Cleveland's even that good.
Well, the East sucks. I don't even know if the East counts as a conference.
That's the other thing.
East shouldn't even send a representative to the finals. They should just give the trophy to Golden State if they make it to the West. And
that's the other
East
thing.
Should say, yeah, but we had an Eastern Conference champion.
These Celtic fans are like, oh, we could go to the finals. For what? To get blown out in 4 straight games? To Golden State?
The Eastern Conference right now,
horrendous.
It's been horrendous for a long time. It actually started to get good at the end of the 2000s, finally, before the 2010s.
And then, it's back to the West.
Jeez, this conference is... This is probably worse than the AFC in the 80s and 90s.
It's there.
It's horrible.
It is pretty freaking bad.
I know that the AFC didn't win a Super Bowl for 15 years?
The Raiders in 83 to the Broncos in 98. So
15 years.
Yeah.
Even though the East has technically won a couple titles here and there, and you had some good teams when the Celtics came up, and then you had the Magic for a bit, and the Bulls were really good when D. Rose wasn't a walking injury. And, LeBron went to build a super team in Miami, and they won. But overall, the stretch, I might say that the Eastern Conference from, say, the
98, the last.
The late 90s when Michael left.
Michael's last year in Chicago, 98.
To today is the worst span of conference play in history.
Let's look at championships.
In history.
Since Jordan's 98 Bulls. All right, let's look at the championships. The
99.
No, the 04 Pistons. We're just doing the East teams that have won.
Oh, I was going to tell you.
The 04 Pistons.
Okay.
The 06 Heat.
Yeah.
08 Celtics.
Yeah.
The 12 and 13 Heat. That's it. 5 teams. 5 teams in the last almost 20 years.
And honestly, that doesn't represent how good the conference was compared to the West. Because I don't think the East was 25% as good as the West.
No.
They just you have to send someone to the finals, so you're going to get lucky once in a while.
No.
The 06
There were a handful of times, there were probably 2 or 3 times where the best teams in basketball were in the East as opposed to the West. But it wasn't too often. I think in 08, the 2 best teams in basketball were the Celtics and the Pistons. They were in the same conference. You had Orlando was an up-and-coming team at the time. They were in the East.
That's why, 2011, you could say that the East was better than the West. East was still really top-heavy, though. You have to remember that you look at the playoffs each year, and you see teams 1 through 8 in the West are actually really good teams, and even teams 9 and 10 are actually good teams, usually above 500 in the West. It's been really odd like that. Then you look at the East, and after Team 3, every team has a fucking losing record. That's not accurate. It's an exaggeration, but it's absurd. Teams with losing records, you're talking about 30-win teams are consistently getting in the playoffs, when in the West, 42 wins doesn't get you in.
Yeah, but it's a little bit of... It's tough to gauge, and look at LA in the 80s. They won 5 titles, right? the Eastern Conference was vastly superior in the 1980s. You had Boston, you had Philly, you had Milwaukee, you had Detroit,
vastly. But
you had Atlanta.
If you had one team in the East that was that good,
in the 80s, that's why LA won 5 titles.
Because they automatically made the finals, basically.
They breezed through the first 3 rounds
let me
without a
explain to you.
problem.
At least in the 80s, there was a team as good as LA in that conference. There has never been a team as good as the LA Lakers from the 80s in the Eastern Conference in the past 20 years. Hasn't existed.
No.
If there was a titan of, say the Celtics had won 4 titles and Garnett stayed healthy and they got like an extra star when the guys aged, okay, and they had like a giant dynasty, you could say, oh, look, like maybe they're similar to the Spurs. Oh, look, like if you had moved the Spurs into the East, then that would be East versus West of the 80s, okay? But literally, all the great teams have been in the West. The consistent, like the Lakers were a great team,
except for a handful. Like that second, that second Heat team was good. The 08 Celtics were really good.
You've had spurts. You've had like shooting stars of great teams for like a minute.
No consistency.
No, I mean Detroit was probably the best team in the East in that span because of how long they made the finals in the Eastern Conference Finals. They won 1 title, but they could have won another one. Correct?
Yeah, they should have.
And really, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals for what, 5 or 6 years in a row? I think it was 5.
There's really only been 3. The 3 teams since 2000 that have dominated the East have been Detroit, Boston, and Miami. Those are your 3 teams. Who else has there been?
Next best team has been the Magic when they had Dwight.
But they went to a finals.
They went to 1 finals.
Yep.
But I mean, you're sitting there looking at Phoenix was a better team than any team in the East for the span of the 20 years, correct?
The Steve Nash teams.
The Steve Nash teams
couldn't play a lick of D, but
but regardless, they actually probably should have made the finals.
If they were in the East, they probably would have made the finals a couple times.
Every year, probably.
Yeah.
Dallas made a couple finals. They won a title.
Yeah.
They actually, with Dirk and then those teams, they would have been consistently in the finals from the East, correct?
Probably.
The Spurs. Nothing needs to be said. Okay, let's just say 2 things, okay? Duncan, pop. Boom, we're done. The Lakers.
Well, they buy everyone, but yeah.
Okay. You could make an argument that teams like Portland, who have been pretty good, or teams like the Rockets, who have been pretty good in the West, had you moved them to the East for the majority of this time, they would have been in the finals.
Yeah, they may have been.
So it's just really hard for me to sit here and act like the Celtics should be happy at all that they're doing well in the East.
We sort of got off track a little bit. We were talking about Golden State. If
Golden State's absurd.
They win 75 games. I've never seen a team, and I'm like an old curmudgeon. Like in my day, the NBA.
Yeah, Scotty Cash always like in my day, the '86 Celtics beat anybody twice.
That was actually
in 1 game.
That was actually before my time. My time was like 1991.
You're generally like the '86 Celtics beat people uphill both ways.
Oh, I still think that the '80s was the best era in the history of basketball.
I don't disagree with you there. I just think we have to give each other era their weight.
I don't
like getting too era-centric.
I also think that the 60s and 70s were way more competitive than people give them credit for. A lot of historians agree on that. A lot disagree, but
the 60s was easier because there was fewer teams to beat. However, there was a greater amount of talent on each team because the talent wasn't as dispersed.
Well, there were only 8 teams, but every
9 teams.
Well, 9 teams, but every team had at least like 2 superstars. That's what people.
Well, they had to because there was only. Think about it. There's the same amount of all-star players as there was now as there are then. So literally, every team's going to have 2 all-stars because there's 24 all-stars for 9 teams.
Well, that's the thing. People always say they always use that as like a demerit for the 60s. It's like it was. It was a small league. I actually think that made it tougher to win. But that
makes it tougher to win in some respects, but I do think you have to use it as there's no way even those Russell teams win 9 titles.
Well, they won 11.
There's no way they win 9.
Today?
That's my point. Correct. They don't.
We'll never know.
Think about how many rounds of playoffs you have to go through. Think about the amount of teams.
Yeah, but look at those teams.
You could probably never. I don't even think you can build a team like that in this era.
Well, no, there was no free agency back then.
There's no free agency. There's no salary cap like there is today. It's completely different.
Oh, you're never gonna.
It's honestly like comparing.
You're never gonna see 11 out of 13.
It's honestly like comparing 1940s NFL to what the Patriots are doing.
Yeah, I mean, that
It's not
every year
apples and oranges is too
No,
close. It's shrimp to oranges.
I understand that. It just annoys me when people act like the 1960s was a bunch of 5'4" white guys in knee pads. That's the only thing that annoys me. They were great.
Oh, there was some 5'4" white guys in the
They were all-time greats.
They were
in that
all-time
era.
greats. I agree. Look at, and we'll get into this real quick because
And that's the
it
other
actually
thing.
just gets there. The ESPN top 10. Okay, since we're talking about
Well, it was
all-time
top
greats.
50.
Well, but we're going to go through the top 10. We're not going to go through the whole 50, are
Well,
we?
No, we're not doing that.
So my point was,
they had Jordan 1, which I'm not going to disagree with. They had Kareem 2. They had LeBron 3rd.
look,
Now,
I give the first two. That's actually where I have them.
well, you alternate between Russell and Kareem.
I put Kareem 2. I think that those three guys, Jordan, Kareem, and Russell, are in a separate class from everyone else.
But like, did a 14-year-old make this list? Who has Bill Russell 7th?
Nobody.
11 championships, 5 MVPs.
He would have had probably 8 defensive players of the year, probably more. I'm trying to be a little cautious here with my estimates. He probably would have had 8 or 9 Finals MVPs. Okay? Again, I'm trying to be cautious. I'm not trying to overestimate. I can't even sit here and tell you how good of a player he was. There hasn't been a defender half as good as him. He has, I don't want to get into crazy stats. If you look at his defensive win shares, he has some of his seasons where he has
like the top 8.
Right, he has as many defensive win shares, just defensive win shares, not overall win shares, as he has more defensive win shares than some players have in their MVP seasons total. He has more defensive win shares in some seasons than Derrick Rose had in his MVP season. He has more defensive win shares in some seasons than Moses Malone had in one of his MVP seasons. So you have to look at that and say he was so good defensively, he impacted the game more than other MVPs impacted the game in total. It's insane. It's almost impossible to grasp. Hakeem's the second best defender of all time, in my opinion. Russell was worth 2 Hakeems, maybe more. It's unfathomable.
Rodman's up there too. He was a great defensive player.
Oh, I think so too, but I think Hakeem at his peak was the second best defender the league's ever seen.
One thing that annoys me is how people view Russell. We know that athletically he would have survived because he was just a phenomenal athlete.
Well, let's talk about him and Wilt for a second.
Well,
they were world-class athletes.
Hold on. You can go on YouTube and look this up. Look up Bill Russell in college taking off from the free throw line and his nuts are sailing over a guy's head.
They were
athletically he would have survived.
World-class, gonna be Olympic if they weren't playing in the
Chamberlain
basketball.
was probably a better athlete than Russell.
I don't even know. It's close. It's that close. Athletically, they could both run super fast and jump super high. They were like Dwight Howard if Dwight Howard could run faster and jump higher than he could now.
But that's the first point that I wanted to make is athletically Russell would have survived. The second myth, and that's what it is, a myth, is that Russell couldn't score. For a guy who averaged, I think, 15, 16 points per game for his career, for a guy who couldn't score, that's pretty damn good. And if you look at his prime when he was, 27, 28 years old, consistently averaging 17 and a half, 18 points a game. But look at his playoff stats. The reason that I always say, and I think Wilt, as I've said many times, in a vacuum, is the greatest player who ever played basketball. When you get to the playoffs, Wilt's numbers go down, and Russell's numbers go way up.
Well,
and the last point I wanted to make, Russell didn't need to score. He did all Russell cared about was W's and rings and banners. That's it. If he needed to score, he could score. You could look up plenty of clinching games during the Celtics' run of 11 and 12 years. Game 7, 1962 Finals, 30 points, 40 rebounds in Game 7. 1960, Game 7 against the St. Louis Hawks, 30 points, 38 rebounds, clinching game.
Well, the thing is that
He could score when he had to.
not even forget the scoring numbers. People say those field goal percentages so low. It wasn't for the era. He was close to the top of the
200
league.
shots a game.
Well, he was close to the top of the league in field goal percentage a few times. If you're one of the best field goal percentage guys in the league, you're not a bad shooter. The league was completely different. 45% field goal percentage was a lot back then.
Well, Russell's field goal
I mean,
percentage.
look at Kuzi's field goal percentage. Look at any guard's field goal percentage back
wasn't
then.
very good.
Looks like everyone's Jason Kidd because they're all in the 30s. Okay, that's how the league was back then. People weren't Steph Curry efficient because didn't exist.
Right. If Russell's taking just 3-point range shots, then yeah, his field goal percentage would have been like 10%. But he was a center. He was playing in the basket. That's like Wilt, I think, holds a record. I think shot 73% from the floor for one season.
Well, Wilt
He's a
was
center.
That's the thing. Wilt was a completely different beast because Wilt was the first player that came into the league and started shooting a higher field goal percentage and had an increase in field goal percentage compared to the rest of the league. Where he was like revolutionary in that aspect. Like before that, everyone shot in the 40s. Maybe they break 50 once in a while, but they shot in the 40s and 30s field goal percentage. Like you said, guys just ran up and down the court and jacked up shots. They didn't. There was a lot of rebounds because there was all these misses, but they just ran up and down the field and jacked up the court and jacked up shots. And the thing is, they weren't going to be as efficient doing that. It wasn't half court sets the way that they are now. I mean, that's one of the ways you could say Russell could definitely survive because he could run back and forth all day. He ran back and forth.
If he played against Shaquille, he said many times, I would just run him up and down the court all day.
He would run a fast break. Russell would dribble the ball up in a fast break all the time.
He had tremendous ball handling skills for a guy his size. But I just think people who say Russell's was overrated in the era, you just don't know anything about basketball. And if you truly believe that, you just don't get it. You'll never get it. There are guys that played in the 60s that would have been, and as much as I'm a Celtic, I'm not a honk.
You're a honk.
I'm a little bit, but I'm also...
You're like Kevin McHale.
I'm objective.
Better than Tim Duncan.
I'm objective.
Honk. You're objectively a honk.
Oh, screw you. I'm not sure Bob Cousy survives in today's game. I mean, part of me wants to say he could probably be like a mini Steve Nash, but I'm really not even sure that he
Look,
could.
and this is the thing. Yeah, I do think he survives. Any great player survives in any era. Greatness translates.
I think Kuz would have... Could Kuz guard Chris Paul?
Could Chris Paul guard Kuz? You gotta realize, Kuz was an innovator. So, while we sit here and think oh, look how backwards he was an innovator for his time. So he would have been Steve Nash in this era. He would have been. That's the thing. You can't just say the guy doesn't translate.
No,
That's like saying Larry Bird doesn't translate.
No, I'm not saying that he's going to come...
People say that all the time. Oh, I don't know if Larry Bird can play in today's era. Okay, so think about it. How many 6'9" guys can shoot like Larry Bird?
Bird would have been better in this era. Kidding me?
Right, how many?
He plays in today's league. You can't touch him.
How many 6'9" guys?
He'll average 40 a game just going on the foul line.
Is Kevin Love a good player?
Yeah, he's a very good player.
Okay, Bird's more talented than Kevin Love.
Yeah, agreed.
So it translates. So I don't know if his athleticism. Bird wasn't athletic back then, but he's just as athletic now. And it's not like Bird was unathletic. He just wasn't athletic for an NBA player. This notion that he can't jump, I mean, I'm sure you have photos around here somewhere. He could actually get off the ground.
Larry actually, his first few years in the league, had decent hops.
Yeah, he could get off the ground.
He was a white... Cedric Maxwell said, all the time, the first practice, he was his biggest skeptic. And, after one practice, boy, this white boy really can play, can't he?
Yeah. So the thing is, he would have been able to play in any era. All the greats could. I don't take he wouldn't have been able to play. The numbers could have been different. You got to factor in, again, field goal percentage, pace of play, a lot of different things, the way that the league changes. That doesn't mean the greats would have been the greats at any point. You put Tim Duncan in the 60s, he's a great.
Mm-hmm.
You put Wilt in today, he's a great.
Oh, my God.
You take any guy from the 70s in any era, they're a great.
Yeah. It just annoys me. I don't see how you can have LeBron that high. That's my only point. Does he belong in the top 10? I think he absolutely does. Do I put him ahead of Bird and Magic? No.
Well, the thing for basketball players, similar to quarterbacks, is you have to have a certain amount of championships.
I'm not even talking about the championships.
You have to. You have to.
Well, hold on a second, though. Larry Bird was an assassin, correct? Cold-blooded killer with a game on the line, agreed?
I'll give you that, yeah.
LeBron has too many moments where he shrank in the big moments. For me, to put him ahead of Magic and Bird.
Then you got to say the same thing about Wilt, and then suddenly Wilt can't be up there.
But LeBron doesn't have the numbers Wilt does.
He will.
He's going to average 50 a game.
He doesn't have to average 50. Again, it's a different game. Wilt doesn't average 50 a game in today's game. You say that, but there's not enough shots for Wilt to average 50 a game. Wilt doesn't score 100 in today's game. He doesn't. It just doesn't happen. There's not enough shots for him to do
it. Have you seen the centers in today's game?
I have. And they're just tall enough and stupid enough and slow enough where they can just bite Wilt's arm and fucking foul him.
You have to keep in mind, too, and we've talked about this before.
You know what the strategy would be for Wilt in today's NBA?
Hack a
Wilt, and he'd have fucking 7 points a game. Okay? So don't sit here and tell me the guy's going to average 50 because he did it against just 2-foot white guys. That's just a joke. But
I think that the game would be better suited for Wilt now. We've talked about this before because you have to keep in mind in the era he played, they changed the rules specifically for him.
correct. So
what
let's assume
so
3
what that
seconds already
means-
exists.
What that means is, back when Wilt played, he could have 3 guys hanging on him and have to take a shot or either give it up, and he still averaged 50 a game.
Okay, so
In today's league, because that's an
no. Okay, first of all, he's going to get charged with way more offensive fouls because they called it for Shaq.
No, they
Just
won't.
like they call it against Gronk. Yeah, when Wilt touches somebody, Wilt's going to go like this, and they're going to be like, foul. I just pushed Scotty a little bit. That Wilt's going to bump somebody too hard, and they're going to call a foul on Wilt. So Wilt's going to foul out of games, folks. Either that or he's going to be sitting a lot because he didn't want to foul out. Okay? Wilt's also going to get fouled all the time, so he has to shoot foul shots. They're a lot smarter in today's day and age. I'm not going to say Wilt wouldn't have been a great player because he would have, but if Wilt averaged 30, that's probably the max he averages in today's NBA. Just like if Kareem had played in today's NBA, he would average less. But if Kareem had played in the 60s, he would have averaged more because the game slowed down. You can't average the same amount of points.
And
You can't.
I think Kareem, I personally, on like my top 10 list, whatever you want to call it, I have Kareem 4th. And the reason that I do is while I think he's one of the greatest who ever played, obviously, look at his stats like after like 1981. The dude
was 80.
he stopped rebounding.
The dude was 80. The dude has the longest longevity of any player.
Chamberlain was an old man averaging 20
He was the best
rebounds a
player
game.
for the longest out of everybody. Better than Karl Malone, better than Kobe for longevity. The dude was like 80 when he stopped rebounding. I'm sorry. He was 80.
How old was he in 1981?
He's Kareem is still playing in the NBA.
How old was he?
I know you didn't know that, but he's actually a bench player. He comes off, Luke Walton puts him in, and he's like, hey, gets 1 rebound and leaves.
His last 8 years in the league, he didn't average 10 rebounds a game. He was
I know,
averaging-
he averaged like 8, 7. I get that, but
For a guy his size, like when he was a kid in Milwaukee, he's averaging like 17 rebounds a game.
right. But he was like 80 years old.
See, you're overrating it.
No, I think you're underrating the fact that he was so old, he's only going to get so many rebounds. What happened to KG rebound-wise?
See, I disagree.
He fell off from 14 to like 6.
With Magic Johnson,
Look at KG's last 5 years of rebounding. That they're going to say the same thing about KG when he retires.
Did Kareem have a debilitating knee injury? No.
Don't give me that. It's hard to sit there and judge how bad and good a guy's knees are.
And the rebounding thing for Kareem as he got old, look at the teams he was playing with. He should have been averaging 15-plus rebounds a game even at that age. All he had to do was rebound, outlet to Magic, and the Lakers were off and running. There's no excuse for him to be averaging 6 rebounds a
Well,
game.
number
when he's
one,
35
Magic was a
years
really good rebounder.
old. I'm not saying that he wasn't.
That's going to take away rebounds. Rebounding is a team stat where the better the rebounders are on your team, the fewer rebounds you have.
Okay, so Bill Russell was the only rebounder on those Celtic teams?
No, but if you put Bill Russell and Wilt in the same team, they can't get as many rebounds as they have now. That doesn't make either one of them less of a rebounder than they are. It's just suddenly you're competing with your own players for rebounds.
Who's the greatest rebounder of all time?
Probably Wilt. Maybe Rodman. Russell's got to be in the conversation. KG's up there.
I'm
So
not
is
gonna
Dwight
say-
Howard, actually.
I'm not going to say...
Those are the guys that you'd have to say are up there. Karl Malone's going to be up there, and so is Duncan. They're not going to be the greatest. Moses is going to be up there. You're probably going to... So is Kareem. You're probably going to say the best 3, though, are Rodman, Wilt, and Russell.
I would say Wilt and Russell are 1 and 2. They're the only 2 guys with 20,000 plus rebounds.
But
I'm okay-
you could rebound more. Again,
Well,
you
all
can't...
right. We're getting into the whole pace of play thing here. But
Yeah, there's not as many rebounds. If there's 100 rebounds or 50, how can you get more?
but think about it, though. You don't think Russell in today's game, even with the slowed down pace, couldn't average 18 rebounds a game? Of course he could.
I don't know that he could, though.
18 a game.
There might be 40 for him to grab. 40. As opposed to 100. Because you're not getting, like... It would be like if I was like...
And if he grabs half of them, it's still 20s. What's your point?
Some of the times, why does a leadoff hitter have more hits than a 9-hole
He
guy?
has more at bats.
Okay, so even if they hit the exact same average, who's going to have more hits?
The leadoff hitter.
Because he has why?
Because he has more at bats.
So more chances automatically gives you the ability to have more numbers.
But if the guy was a great hitter, he wouldn't be hitting ninth. He'd be hitting third.
Say for some reason this man is just really fucking weird.
So
and he says,
Grady Little?
yeah, I'm sticking my 9 hitter
Well,
as the real leadoff.
Well, Bill Miller.
He's like, oh, you know what happens? The 8 guy always gets out, so we're going to want to lead off with the 9.
Well, Bill Miller was like batting 7th and 8th in that 03 lineup and won the batting title, so I guess that proves my point.
I think he actually was 8th a lot, yeah.
Well, Todd Walker was usually in the 2-hole on that team. It was Damon, Walker, Nomar, Manny, Ortiz.
You know what?
and
As
usually
odd as it
Millar,
sounds, I don't have the
Barrett,
hugest
Nixon.
problem with that.
Well, you could have had Manny batting 9th on that team, too.
Okay, ready? We're going to look at KG's rebounds per game, okay?
But the
In
point
the past. No.
the point I was
This
going
is
to
important.
The point I was going to make, though, I'm not sure that Kareem is the top 5 rebounder ever.
He's up there.
Hold on. I'm not sure he's a top 5 rebounder ever. I know he wasn't as good a rebounder as Russell Chamberlain. Rodman was probably a better rebounder, correct?
Yeah. But I think Rodman might be the greatest rebounder of all time.
I don't think he was as good as Chamberlain or Russell.
KG's rebounding, okay? By the way, he led the league in rebounding 4 times, which is one of the most ever. KG's last 4 years in rebounding. 3.9 this year. The year before that, 5.2.
Chris, he's playing 10 minutes a game.
6.8. 6.6. 6.6. He's not playing 10 minutes a game. He's playing 14 this year. The other years he was playing 20 or more each year. He was playing 19.6 one year, excuse me. Okay, even when he was playing 30 minutes a game, he was at a whopping 8.2. So he's not like Scotty. Once a guy gets to his mid to late 30s,
look up Elijah once.
I will. Once a guy gets to his mid to late 30s and then around 40, which KG's 39 now, they don't rebound. They don't. 34-year-olds don't rebound well, no matter how good they were in their peak. It's very rare. Unless you're a guy like Karl Malone, you're a physical specimen that works out every day. Karl Malone's working out right now, too. Karl Malone's in Tom Brady's gym, and they're working out. Karl Malone's trying to get his NBA championship, and Tom Brady's working for Super Bowl number 5, excuse me.
His 49 rings?
Tom Brady might have 49 rings when he's done playing. We'll look up Hakeem's stats.
I thought Barkley was a better rebounder than Malone was.
It was close. It's actually really close.
Look up Hakeem's stats, though.
Yeah, I'm actually going to give Barkley the edge there because, Malone the edge there in rebounding. But
You looking up Olajuwon?
I'm looking up Hakeem Olajuwon stats for rebounding, okay?
He was a better rebounder than Jabbar, I think. Wasn't as good a scorer.
Hakeem was a very odd player because most of his career, he was not one of the best players in the league.
He was routinely like 12 to 14 boards a game.
Hakeem was constantly between the 10th and probably 15th best player in the league. And then for a 2 to 3 year stretch, he was absolutely not.
I think he was close to top 10 this entire team at the time.
No, he really wasn't, though.
What are his numbers? Rebound numbers.
Hakeem, for 3 year stretch, the best 3 year stretch, he had 13.5, 14, 13.9. Okay, Hakeem's last 6 years in the league: 6.0, 7.4, 6.2, 9.6, 9.8. The year before they had 9.2. So for 7 years, he didn't have 10 a game.
That's pretty good, though.
Right, but
he was a shade under 10. Kareem was like 6.
He goes down to 6.0 even.
Yeah, one season.
7.4 before that. 6.2 before that. So his last 3, which are the years of 39, 38, and 37. And again, Kareem was actually older than Hakeem when he retired. So we're going to look at Kareem's numbers, okay? Because again, you're exaggerating the fact that this just happened to Kareem. This happens to all these players. You just don't like the camel, okay? You're like, oh, he was on LA, he should have got more rebounds. That's the end of it. Again, I'm going to knock him on my all-time list because he stopped rebounding when he turned 85. Okay. Ready?
Jeez, your phone sucks.
Here we go. Well, I get terrible service in your house for some reason. So again, he plays till he's 41, so he plays longer, which makes him look worse. But if you were just to start where
1981's the last time he averaged double figures.
Right, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years under 10. Hakeem had 7 years under 10. Kareem played 2 years longer. Technically, Kareem averaged.
Yeah, but what are the numbers?
Kareem averaged 10 rebounds per game.
What are the numbers?
Later in life.
What
Okay.
What are the numbers?
His last year, He averaged 4.5. Okay, 4.5. He also played 4.2 minutes a game. Okay?
Come on.
The second to last year, excuse me, 22 minutes a game. That's not accurate. His second year, he averaged, second to last year, 6, which was what?
Before that, come on.
6.7, 6.1, 7.9, 7.3, 7.5, 8.7. Okay? So, but for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years in a row, he averaged 10 or more. Most of those years, he averaged over 14.
His peak was
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 years over 14 in a row. Okay?
Yeah. That's what Milwaukee, right?
Yeah, most of it's with Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Again, people rebound better when they're younger. This is not new to anybody. This is not groundbreaking news. This is me being like, pitches that throw fastballs, the fastballs are better when they're younger, and they slow down in velocity as they age. Whoa! Not groundbreaking.
He only won 2 scoring titles.
Yeah, I mean, how many scoring titles do you expect the guy to win?
I thought he won like 3 or 4. I didn't think just 2.
2 scoring titles. 1 rebounding title. That's it.
Look, I have him 4. It's not like I have the guy like 45th.
4 block titles.
I just think there were 3 players in the history of the league that were better than him. That's all. I got ahead of Magic. I got him ahead of Bird.
Well, I don't have a problem with you thinking that. I just think that if you're gonna knock,
you think 4 is too low, and that's
no.
fine.
But I think if you're gonna knock LeBron for not winning, you have to knock Wilt, and then Wilt can't be better than Kareem. Your logic's incongruent when you say that. I'm gonna knock LeBron for not winning, but I'm not gonna knock Wilt because I think in a vacuum Wilt's the best.
It was different with Wilt
because he played in the '60s.
Well, he ran into a buzzsaw every year. Kareem never had that like great team in the 70s. There were no dynasties in the 70s really. Kareem never had to go up against that great team, and he actually only had.
He did in the '80s though.
He had 1 ring until Magic showed up. He had 1. Okay.
Let me explain something to you guys. I'll tell you this right now. For at least the first 2, maybe the first 3,
Kareem was the man in the first
LA
couple.
rings. Forget telling me Magic showed up. Okay. Yeah. Kareem was better than Magic. So Kareem has 1 ring without Magic.
If Magic's okay,
and at least 2 or 3 of those first rings are more Kareem than Magic.
That's fine, but
and that
are we having this?
And Magic stole a Finals MVP that he doesn't deserve over Kareem.
Well,
just because he played center for 17 seconds.
It was 23 seconds.
Whatever it was. Okay.
It was like the first possession.
It's absurd.
But anyway, he had a great game. And this is all, trying to think of the word here.
Conjecture.
Right. Magic never happens. He never goes out to LA, and Kareem retires with great stats, all those MVPs. He has 1 championship. The narrative's different on Kareem.
Agreed.
All right.
Bird goes to LA. Kareem and Bird are now supreme emperors of the universe as they win 75 titles. Actually, they just won this year. But you didn't know that. They also win 80 games in an 82-game season. Okay? I don't think it gets.
You're saying Magic was Bird was that much better than him?
No, that's not me being serious. I actually think that they're really similar. I think Bird at his peak is a better player. I think Bird was at his peak earlier than Magic.
But Magic did it longer.
Right. And I think the only reason I give Magic the benefit of the doubt is because he has 5 rings. But Bird never played with a player as good as Kareem. If Kareem and Bird in the early 80s, they would have won probably 5 titles in a row.
One thing we did see, though, in '86, we saw Bird play with a healthy Bill Walton, and it was like otherworldly as far as dominance.
I think it would have been otherworldly with Kareem. I do.
And that's the thing. And that's why those 2 are forever linked. Not leaked. From 80 to 86, Bird was a superior player, I think.
Right.
But from 87 on...
And what fits in better? 87 on with Kareem? Or 80 to 86 with Kareem? If you want your other guy to have his peak. Where do you want to have his peak?
You want him to have it in the back end, but he didn't.
No, front end. Because if
Wait, what are you saying?
The guy playing with Kareem.
Okay, you want it in the front end.
Right, because if Bird has his peak 80 to 86, that fits in perfect with Kareem. They win for 5 or 6 titles in a row. Maybe they squeak out 1 more at the end. And then they suck in the late 80s. But that's fine. Okay? With Magic, you had Magic's...
Bird never sucked. He just wasn't the player he was.
Magic's peak wasn't until Kareem was already on the downslope. So their peaks didn't meet or weren't together enough. Okay, if Bird, who had his peak earlier, played with Kareem, they're absolutely dominant in the early '80s.
We kind of like got off track with the.
Oh, we're way off topic. We were talking about Golden State. Technically,
yeah, we do this way too much. And the funny thing is, and we talk about like the quality of the league and the different eras, and everyone always talks about the '96 Bulls, as being the best team ever. I've told you this many times. Not only do I not think the '96 Bulls are the best team ever, I don't think they're the best Bulls team ever. I think their best team was '92. 67 win team. Jordan and Pippen at their peak.
It's hard to say.
I think that was their best team.
It's definitely hard to say. I mean, I know this. I don't know if I could ever pick against a Jordan-led team in a series. I really don't. Maybe it would have to be a Russell-led team against him. It's very hard for me to... I mean, he won all his finals. That's saying something.
Yeah, but... He never really had... One thing the Bulls, and Bill Simmons highlighted this tremendously in his book, The Book of Basketball. I don't know if you've read it.
Like 13 times.
Yeah. The Bulls had a lot of luck avoiding centers in that era.
Reminds me of Joe Montana. Okay? Part of the reason he's 4-0 in Super Bowls is who he faced in the Super Bowls. Okay? That's correct. If the Bulls had to play 2000 Lakers team, okay? Take the 2000 Lakers team and throw that in the Bulls.
That 01 LA team, they would have had nothing to do with O'Neal. Shaquille would have feasted off of their poo-poo platter centers.
Luke Longley? So that's my point is, part of it's the matchup. It's like boxing. It's like who you playing when, okay? I mean, put it this way. The Celtics beat the Heat a few years ago in the Eastern Conference Finals. Oklahoma City has a title right now, correct?
I'm not willing to say that.
I am. When we talked about it before the series started, Oklahoma City would have destroyed them. They were a terrible matchup. They would have annihilated that Celtics team. Celtics team couldn't move Oklahoma City up and down the court.
They weren't ready. The Celtics have been there. I think it would have been closer than people think.
I think the only reason they weren't ready is because, one, they lost the game on a terrible call. It's not uncommon in the NBA.
They lost that on a bunch of terrible calls. I think that series was all about David Stern saying, "Oh, LeBron's the face of my league. I have to get him a ring." And I'm not trying to, be facetious. I honestly think that there was foul play. I actually think that this guy Silver is kind of on the level, which is kind of why I'm coming back to basketball a little bit.
I'd say basketball might be more on the level than football right now.
Oh, football, forget about it.
Let's get into... Skip over the Warriors and how great they're playing for a minute.
Well, talk to me in June. But I think if they win 75 games, they blow through the playoffs. I'm not going to anoint them the best team ever, because I still think the league was better in the 80s and early 90s. They're gonna be in the conversation. They got to be considered a top 5 team if they pull that off.
80s and early 90s is when Larry Bird played.
I think. Hey, I started watching the early. I still think the '92 Bulls are better than the '96 Bulls. I'll go to my grave believing that.
All right, what should the Celtics do going forward?
I don't know what they should do. I'm going to tell you what they should not do.
What should they not do?
Now, the Celtics have been linked to a couple of guys. We're just going to go over a couple of them here. They've been linked to Al Horford, center for the Atlanta Hawks. I like Horford. I think he's a good player. What are his numbers? What's he averaging?
Al Horford for the year, 15.3 points per game, 6.9 rebounds. So those are Kareem-like numbers. Yep. 1.5 blocks per game. He's a per. Don't know if you guys know what a per is.
I'm not into that crap, but go ahead.
It's really a great stat. 19.91. Just about all-star / star level.
Al Horford, really good player. I like him. But, and there's the but, 29 years old, he's going to be 30 in June. So you could say if he's not at his peak right now, he's a little bit past it.
Not going to stay in your team.
Undrafted, unrestricted free agent. He's not staying here. If you're going to make this deal, you got to have a handshake agreement with them at least before you make the deal that he'll sign an extension.
If you got to make this deal, it's going to be for like Jared Sullinger only.
Well, I'm going to get there in a minute. And he's going to want max. If he does stay with you, he's going to want max money. He's not a max player. Is he a max player? You giving him max money? At his age, 30 years old,
No.
he's
not
like
even
he's like a
close.
poor man Joakim Noah, basically. You're not giving him max money. If you do, you're stupid.
That team was loaded,
but
by
that's-
the way, because they
that-
played on the same Florida team
But that's
with David Lee.
But that's why Atlanta's making him available. They know he's not staying there. They know he's not a max player. Why do you think he's available?
Well, they're seeing what they can get for him.
I think he's getting traded one way or the other. Atlanta's.
I trade Johnny Manziel.
All right. But the main reason that you don't trade for Horford, or why at least I don't trade for Horford, if they were knocking on the door of a championship, and if this was like the final piece to possibly like topple Golden State Finals or something like that, like a bad match for them, sure, pull the trigger. Try to win it now. Worry about 2020 and 2020. This team's not winning a championship. We've tried to hammer this through your heads several times over the past, couple weeks at least.
Oh, easily.
And I used this analogy to you the other day. Al Horford's not a number one guy. He's a solid number 3 possibly on a championship team. And this is no disrespect to Robert Parrish, because I know the Chief listens to our show faithfully, so this isn't a knock on you, Robert. Al Horford is Robert Parrish, and the Celtics don't have a Larry Bird and a Kevin McHale. That's the problem. You're not going to win a championship with Al Horford. Unless you go out and get like Durant and Westbrook and Boogie Cousins, and yeah, Al Horford's really going to help you win a championship. They don't have those guys. But
You need to get those guys first before making a deal like this.
Exactly. Al Horford, he comes to this team, and he's the best player on your team, is he not?
Yes.
Okay. Can you win a championship with Al Horford as your best player?
Not unless the rest of my roster is basically just as
The
good as
04
Al Horford.
Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I was going to say. It'd have to be 5 guys that are... And even then, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'd have to say, okay, so we'll say you had...
Oh, God.
What?
No one that you guys know, but guy I'm familiar with, his name is Bobby. He's a janitor at my brother's school. He's like an NBA nut. They're in on Kevin Love again. 2 rumors that aren't dying are the Kevin Love rumors.
They're not getting Kevin Love.
They better not get Kevin Love.
Kevin Love a few years ago would have been fine.
2
no reason to
years
get
ago,
him
we
now.
wanted him. Yeah, bring him on.
4 years ago, I would have taken Dwight Howard and CP3. Now I don't want either one of those guys.
Oh, you love Chris Paul. When did that change?
Well, he's old. The guy only has so much shelf life in the NBA. You're not going to win a championship with CP3 in this
You're
team.
going to mortgage a future and you're going to make a deal like that. He's got to be
27.
27 or younger.
If you already had a star and you were getting a second and third star, and they were all going to be right around 30 like
That's
Danny
fine.
did before,
Yeah.
that's fine.
That gives you like a 3-4 year window. I don't even want to go into Dwight Howard, but I have to. Hold on. Let me hold my nose while I do
Dwight
this.
Howard for 3.
Dwight Howard.
Scotty, tell me your feelings.
No. Fucking no. That's my feelings.
Wait. Tell me your feelings.
No. No mas. No.
Roberto Duran.
No.
Dwight Howard's numbers for the year, okay? 14.6 points per game, 12.0 rebounds, still rebounding well. 1.5 blocks per game, a PER of 20.29. I want it noted that PER overestimates players that can rebound a lot, just for the record.
All we've heard over the past year, really, Chris, what have we heard about the Boston Celtics? They're not even though I'm not talking about
I'm surprised they were a playoff team last year.
I'm not talking about the green teamers that delude themselves. It's like Mike Gorman now.
You didn't know they were going to win against Cleveland last year?
Like Mike Gorman, who's like he's kind of sold his soul to the owners, like actually believing this is a championship team. I really hope he doesn't believe that, and they just like gave him like a bonus to like try to sell it or something. I don't know who this guy is and what he's done with Mike Gorman. Let me just put it that way. Mike Gorman was subjective. He told you like it is. That's not Mike Gorman right now. He's trying to tell you that Bird, McHale, and Parrish are right around the corner. They're not. Okay? They're not. This
Watch
team
out for Jay Crowder.
even though, hey, I like Crowder
I
actually.
like Crowder fine, but is Crowder a top 3 player?
On a championship team?
Is anybody on your team a top 3 championship player?
Isaiah might be like your 6th best player, and he's the best player on this team.
Okay. Let's just say you have Horford. Add in star X and star Y. and then Isaiah is your fourth best player. That's good.
You're competitive. You could probably go to the East. Well,
okay, add in 3 Horfords and Isaiah, you're pretty good.
It depends on who your X and your Y are. If one of your X's is LeBron or Durant, then yeah, that's different.
Let's say your X is Jimmy Butler. I'm not picking position.
I really like Jimmy Butler a lot.
Let's say your X is Jimmy Butler, your Y is Dwight Howard, then you have Horford and Isaiah Thomas. You could even get to a finals with
Dwight
that.
Howard's on your team. No, you're going nowhere.
He made a finals once.
Nowhere. He made a finals once because Kevin Garnett ripped his knee up. It's the only reason, guys. All we've been hearing for the past 2 years.
I know that Celtics team was destined to win another title.
The last year specifically. Oh, look at this young nucleus that Brad Stevens is building. The talent's not really there, but they play hard. They're in all these games. They don't quit. They play good defense. They run when they have the opportunity. Great chemistry. Good ball movement. You throw a grenade in the locker room, bringing Dwight Howard in here. It destroys any progress that you've made since Stevens took over as head coach, I think.
I don't know what progress you've made with Stevens. And I don't mean that as an indictment. I mean, you can't. This league, being mediocre is the worst.
Is Dwight Howard going to help you win a championship?
No. But what track do you like better, Phillies or Oz?
Probably Phillies.
Okay.
Probably Phillies.
Yeah, green teamers. Yeah, we'll make the playoffs. Woo! This isn't 2000, guys. What happened in 2001?
Which one?
Sports-wise for New England.
The past won a Super Bowl.
Okay. What happened after that?
In 2002? They were mediocre.
No, in general. Throughout the next decade or so.
Are you talking about the Patriots specifically?
No. Talking about Boston sports.
Oh, yeah. They won an incredible run and won championships every year.
No one cares if we make the playoffs anymore. A playoff team does shit. Doesn't make anybody happy.
No.
We don't appreciate. It's sad. It's an indictment on us as a spoiled fan base, really. But no one appreciates playoff teams anymore.
But as I said last week,
we used to appreciate playoff teams. If you make the playoffs previously, people cared.
As I said last week, though, the bar for the Celtics has always been world championship.
Yeah, but
always.
Okay, and those Pierce and Antoine teams, you can enjoy the rides.
2002 was fun, even though
you can enjoy the rides.
I thought they would. If they had went to the finals, they would have got killed by LA because Shaquille.
They were never going to win a title. But you know what? We enjoyed the ride. We can't do that anymore. It's not how it works. Too many championships in a row. We're too spoiled.
Do you want Dwight Howard? I don't want Dwight Howard. I don't want him anywhere near this team. Not only that, you trade for him, he's gone. He can opt out. You think he's staying here? He ain't staying here. Brad Stevens will be on the sideline pulling his hair out if he had Dwight Howard. No.
You can't do anything.
I dropped an F-bomb at work today when I saw that the Dwight Howard rumors were back, and everyone in my office looked at me. Okay? No. He's a fucking dog. He's been in Houston, 2 years now? Could never score in the low post. He's learning from probably... I wouldn't even say learning because he doesn't give a shit. He's the 2 best post scorers ever, arguably. Kevin McHale and Hakeem Olajuwon are working with them to try to develop some semblance of a post game. Nothing. Do you know why? Because he's lazy and he doesn't give a shit. Doesn't care. He is a lazy dog. Absolutely pissed away all of his talent in his career. Pissed it away. I don't want this guy anywhere near my goddamn team.
Anywhere.
You can laugh if you want. The thought.
I just love watching you get worked up.
No, the thought of him being a Celtic just makes me cringe. Like, I hate thinking about it.
Well, I don't want him a Celtic either.
And Kevin Love would be just as bad. Guy's the softest fish.
The only other rumor we've heard a lot is Cousins. I know you like Cousins.
I'm going on record as I take the gamble. I mean, let's put it this way. I wouldn't give up every single Brooklyn pick for him. I think that's too much.
Well, so what are they going to ask for Cousins? You're not just going to get him for a song and a dance.
It's going to be at least one Brooklyn pick. It's going to have to be any combination of, I would think, Sullinger, Evan Turner, like some kind of package of young players, expiring contracts. David Lee would be in there for the expiring money, which is kind of.
Well, you got to make the money work too.
Well, that's the thing. You got to make the contracts match. But the David Lee expiring deal is kind of a moot point if you're Sacramento, because you can have all the cap space in the world. Who the hell's going to want to play in Sacramento? They're the most dysfunctional franchise in sports right now, probably. They're the Cleveland Browns of the NBA. They're so dysfunctional. There's a report out. Yeah, we're strongly considering firing George Karl. George Karl is like making plans to like go on vacations golfing, expecting to be fired before the All-Star break, and then they're like, "Oh, you know what? We're not going to fire you." And George Karl's like, "Really? You're not going to fire me?"
He's like, "Please fire me."
That's the Sacramento Kings. I mean,
Queens.
Well, I was thinking about Shaquille for a second.
Sacramento Queens.
Remember Shaquille said that?
Yep. Cousins' numbers: 26.8 points, 11.1 rebounds, 1.3 blocks per game, a PER of 23.27. This actually makes him a superstar, according to PER.
He's a monster. He's an absolute monster. And the one knock on Boogie Cousins is his attitude. Can blow up.
The problem with Cousins is that he doesn't do anything other than make you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, in my opinion.
Well, you got to put another guy with him.
How do you get that other guy? Who is said guy?
You make
do you just buy? What do you just get him off a rack at a Walmart?
You make the deal for Cousins. One thing that's overlooked is Boston's going to have a lot of cap space this summer.
Oh, I know that.
Half of their roster's off the books. Now, you're going to have to go and sign another guy to a max deal. If you really want to shoot for the stars, it's Kevin Durant. I don't know if Kevin Durant wants to come play with Cousins. But you get...
Well, that's the guy I'd like to get.
Well, it's not happening. I don't expect it to happen. If you have Cousins and Durant on this team with Isaiah Thomas as your number 3, you're in the NBA Finals next summer. You win the East with those 3 guys. Now, do you beat Golden State? I don't know. On paper right now, on the surface, probably not. But it's a hell of a lot better than being an 8 seed and getting swept, is it?
They're not going to be an 8 seed.
No, like I'm saying last year they were an 8 seed and got swept. Actually, they were the 7 seed last year, sorry. Dwight Howard, want nothing to do with him. Kevin Love, want nothing to do with him. I actually like Al Horford a lot. I just don't think it makes sense.
I'm almost more willing to sell right now than buy as a Celtics.
How do you sell that to your fan base, though? That's the only thing. They're not going to do that.
They're smart enough to know that you don't go after being a 6 seed, a 4 seed,
what I think
in a weak conference. You say, let's trade Isaiah Thomas for what you can get for him.
What I think Ainge is trying to do...
Do you think Isaiah Thomas doesn't get you something?
What's he going to get you?
Give me more picks, man.
That you don't even know.
Keep picking till you pick right.
I think the other thing that I think the Celtic fans are completely missing in this whole thing, they have Brooklyn's pick this year. It's unprotected. That's great. I believe they're tied with Phoenix right now for the 3rd worst record, and it's probably going to end up being the 4th worst record because I don't know if you guys have watched the Phoenix Suns lately. They're a dumpster fire. Okay, I could see them not winning another game the rest of the season. Eric Bledsoe's out the rest of the year. That is a bad, bad team right now. Okay, so you're looking at 4th worst record, which is like something like 10% chance of the number 1 pick. I think these people are just assuming that because it's the next pick, it's just going to magically turn into Ben Simmons in June. All right?
Ben Simmons!
All right? I don't think that's the case. And if they got the first pick, I'm not even sure I would draft Ben Simmons.
You draft Ben Simmons if you get the first pick.
I guess I would.
Like I told you with Andrew Wiggins, you take the guy with the talent. You take him. You take the stud. You don't take a guy that looks like he can score a lot in college. You take the guy with the most talent.
So the latest rumor I'm getting updates here is a 3-way deal. Love to Boston. Ugh. Melo to Cleveland, which is actually kind of interesting. And spare pieces to New York. Now, we don't know if that's going to involve Celtic draft picks.
It's going to have to, and I don't want that.
I don't want that at all. I don't want that at all. Kevin Love can't even stay on the court, for Christ's sake.
Kelly Olynyk ruined his career.
I would rather have Olynyk than Love right now. At least Olynyk's cheap.
No. I'd rather have Brian Scalabrine.
Kevin Love makes you even more mediocre than you
I think
are.
we get Walter McCarty back.
Just to fire 3. He's the assistant coach already.
3.
But if
Just I want to hear, I love Walter.
if that's true, I don't like it.
You wouldn't watch a game just because Walter McCarty was playing?
No, dude. I'm saying love right now. I don't like it. I don't like this. Danny, I don't like it.
It's not going to happen.
How do you know that?
Because I know.
Oh, you just know everything.
Danny's smart enough to not make that move.
Is he know? This is the guy who traded Antoine Walker for Rafe LaFrentz with a limp, and you're telling me that he's smart enough.
That's because his ultimate plan was to suck and get better picks. Didn't you know that?
And I don't believe that. But guys, okay, 1997, 2007, 2 years ago. The saying isn't 4 times charm. You really want to tempt fate again with the lottery? You want to hitch your wagon to the lottery again and get burned again? Celtics aren't going to get the first pick. All right, I'm telling you right now. It's what? It's February 12th. They'll probably get like the 7th pick in the draft. Okay? Not going to get the first pick in the draft.
But it'll be Marcus Smart.
Oddly enough, other than Wiggins, he's probably the best player from that draft right now.
I can't stand how much people like latch on to a guy like Smart and act like he's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's like the Al Jefferson thing all over again.
I like Smart. He plays hard.
I like Al Jefferson.
Yeah, Smart's a good
We
player.
overrate our young guys. Like we act like they're all going to be studs.
The thing with Smart, and I told you this the other day, he's not a point guard. He's not a good enough shooter to be a 2 guard. So like, what is he?
The thing with Smart is he's not that great a player.
He's undersized, so he can't be a 3.
Unless he grows dramatically as a player, like drastically changes. He's not that great a player. He's not a 1, 2, or 3 in the championship team. Even in the future, I don't think.
No.
He's lucky if he's Tony Allen.
I told you the other night, he basically does what Tony Allen does.
He's lucky if he's Tony Allen. I don't know. The team. I really don't even think Danny has a plan. These rumors you're telling me, I don't even think Danny has a plan.
I don't know. The thing with Danny is he has a lot of ideas, but they don't seem to correlate with the other things that he's done. If that makes sense.
His thought process doesn't make sense. Can we honestly say he just got lucky with Ray and KG?
We got to give him a chance to see how these picks pan out that he traded for before we make that assessment.
Who has he picked that you think is great?
He's had a lot of good drafts, actually.
Who? Let's go through his great draft picks.
What, like through his career?
Yeah.
Jefferson.
Celtics GM.
We're just talking about good players. We're not talking about Nate Smith guys, all right? We're not talking about Hall of Famers. Jefferson was a good player.
Okay.
You drafted Ryan Gomes, who's a decent player.
Yeah, but that's not like...
All right, okay. Delonte West, he's a decent player. We're talking about guys who...
So Danny Ainge is very good at drafting serviceable NBA players. Wait a minute, what do you have in your team right now?
Well, it's kind of hard
a bunch of serviceable NBA players.
It's kind of hard to draft Hall of Famers when you're picking 18th every year, too. You have to keep that in mind. When has he ever had a high draft pick? He had a high draft pick. If you want to call 6th pick in the draft a high draft pick, then yeah, he had that
almost
once.
took friggin' G.U. Long that year.
Well, that was the Odin Durant draft, right?
Right.
Yeah, he took Jeff Green.
That's who he was supposedly going to take.
He took Jeff Green and
for the Celtics.
And he flipped it for Ray Allen.
So that doesn't even count because Jeff Green was probably picked by them, not us.
I wouldn't brag about Jeff Green. We were talking about Dwight Howard, a guy wasting his talent.
Jeff Green's better than Delonte West, better than Ryan Gomes.
Right, he drafted Jefferson. He drafted Perkins, who actually was a center on a championship team. Orchestrated the trade to draft Rondo, even though I've been critical of Rondo.
Rondo's his best draft pick, if you consider that his draft pick.
Yeah, I consider that
He's his best draft pick.
I know you don't like him, but Solinger got him at 21.
Which is garbage, because the guy's garbage. It doesn't matter if the guy's not a good player, if he's a standard subpar player. I don't care if you drafted him, I don't care if you scooped him in free agency or drafted him last in the draft. It's a garbage pick.
Like I said, man, he's always picking mid to late first round. Traditionally, he's never really had a super high draft pick.
And he's never getting great returns. Here's Rondo. Rondo's the only pick he made that's worth more than what he paid for it.
What about Jefferson? Jefferson was like the 15th pick in the draft.
Jefferson was alright. Do you ever think Jefferson was that much of a stud?
Um,
And don't say, well, when he was here and Tommy talked him up. I
No,
thought he was going to be the next Bill Russell that could score.
I thought he was an all-star player, potential all-star player.
Okay.
He was a really good post
I
scorer.
thought Tony Allen was a potential all-star player.
Tony Allen was a really good defensive player. See, you're making it out like he's never drafted a number one guy, and that's true. He never has.
He's never drafted a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, but again, a lot of that's his draft position. If he was like Elgin Baylor when he was GM of the Clips and he had the first pick in the draft every year, and he could still not hit, then yeah, I might agree with you. Ainge never had those picks.
Look, it's not Sean Livingston's fault. His leg got destroyed.
Get out of here, Sean Livingston. Okay, Michael Olowokandi, okay? That's all I'm going to say about
Hey.
that.
The Candyman should have been a good player.
Emphasis on should have been. So we're going to wrap it up here. Danny, I know you're listening tonight. Please do not trade for Dwight Howard or Kevin
If you're going to
Love.
go after anybody, go after James Harden.
You're you're higher on Harden than I am. And actually, Danny tried to get Harden for Perkins in 2011, and OKC at the time said no way. So we had to settle for Jeff Green. But we're going to call it a show. We'll
If
hopefully
you get him in 2011, you probably win a championship.
instead of Nanad, Chris Dish, and Jeff Green. They might win the East. Maybe they win it.
They made the Eastern Conference Finals. They probably would have made a championship.
They didn't make the finals that year.
The next year they did.
No,
And they should have won it. With James Harden on that team next year, with Pierce and all them, you win a championship.
Maybe.
With Pierce, KG, Ray Allen, and Rondo? James Harden?
Yeah, maybe they do. Who knows?
Oh, they win it. They
Hey,
win
give OKC credit. They weren't stupid enough to make that trade because Perkins did absolutely nothing for them.
it. They were stupid enough to make that trade because they actually downgraded with trading Jeff Green for Perkins. You didn't even tell me that they needed Perkins, but Perkins was horrible.
I actually thought, like, even though Jeff Green was like wasted potential, Ainge still got the best player in that trade. I felt.
Yeah, that's my point. So OKC made a bad move. OKC also
Yeah.
traded and took a guy on that makes too much money. So then, you know what their problem was? Then they couldn't afford all the guys they needed.
One thing
they could have stayed. They didn't keep Harden. They went after. They kept Perkins and Ibaka.
You know what though? They probably
I can't believe they never amnestied Perk.
but like the Celtics ended up doing, and like Memphis is trying to do now. They could probably see that Jeff Green just. There were nights he cared and nights he didn't. They were sick of it. Which probably forced their hand to make that deal.
I get that though, but I think that was a snowball effect and a domino effect. You could say that ruined
Yeah.
the rest of their
You
dynasty building. They would have had.
You could have argued last year that Kevin Durant was the worst of those three.
Right, they would have had KD, Russell Westbrook, and Harden had they not traded for Perk.
Russell Westbrook is
Because Perk made too much money, okay? Then what happened with Perk was they kept him, and they decided they'll sign Serge Ibaka with Perk. They didn't have Perk. They could have just signed Serge Ibaka and Harden and kept them together. And said, see you later, Perk. But they had Perk for big money. That's the whole reason Perk left here, is because Celtics didn't want to pay him big money.
He was coming off a knee injury. He didn't want to negotiate a contract.
I don't remember what he made, but I think
even-
he made $8 to $10 million a year after that. Which is absurd. I think it's like 8.
I don't even fault Ainge for that trade at the time, and even now in hindsight, I don't. I know what he was doing.
Well, I fault Ainge because I think with Perk on the team, you had a really strong, solid 3-man center rotation. I know Shaq ended up injuring himself, but I think you actually have a chance to win a title.
Yeah, but I think Danny made that trade in theory because he figured that he took the gamble that Shaquille would stay healthy for the postseason, and it didn't work out.
Well, he was wrong. Number one. Number two, he didn't realize how much it was going to upset the chemistry of the team. That team was probably the best team in the league at the time.
Pierce actually said to somebody that I know ran into him at a casino and they asked him about the trading deal because he goes, man, that just kind of screwed with our chemistry. He admitted it.
It did. And Rondo was never the same player. Rondo was one of the best players in the league before that happened that year. The beginning of that year, he was probably like the MVP the first season.
Oh, I got in an argument with my dad today about it because we were talking about Chris Paul and how he was better than Rondo. And he goes, remember when they were trying to trade Rondo for Chris Paul and like some people didn't want to do it? And I said, Chris Paul's a better player. But even though I bash Rondo, you know how much I've bashed Rondo over the years. In a big game, I take Rondo over Chris
Rondo's
Paul.
got big balls.
I take him over Chris Paul.
Well, that Eastern Conference Finals 2012, they should have won. And Rondo was the best player in that series. In a series full of Hall of Famers,
he was their best.
He was the best player in the series.
He was the best player in their run in 2010 when they didn't win it.
Correct. He was the best player in that championship team, even though they lost, like the finals team. He was actually probably the best player from the playoffs '09 to
He had a big series against Derrick Rose.
right from the playoffs '09 through when the Big Three era ended with Ray Allen and then KG and PS getting traded. Rondo was the best player on the team.
That's what frustrated me with Rondo too, is he could have played like that every night. But we've been over this so many times. There's no sense in getting into it here. But I think we'll call it a wrap for tonight. We'll come back to you next week. We'll see what's on the table then. Probably not going to be a ton of football. Maybe we'll gloss over it a little bit.
Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen.
Shout out to my friend good friend of mine, and Chris's, who passed away the other day, Jack Lutz. Rest in peace. I love you, brother. And I know that you had a
shout out to my cousin Maddie. I know many of you probably saw there was a manhole cover that killed somebody in a tragic accident. Caitlin Clavette, that was his girlfriend. So rest in peace to Caitlin, and prayers to her family and thoughts to everyone around.
That's about as emotional as we get on this show, but certainly warranted. Terrible thing on both ends, but thoughts and prayers with the families of the departed. Have a good night, guys.